What's up, everyone, and welcome to the 21st episode of the Envision Gaming Podcast. I'm your host, Brad's Gaming, and as always, I'm joined by Clonish Joe
Hello, everyone.
and Triple Bravo.
Howdy, folks.
All right, Joe. I remember you wanted to talk about something.
Ocarina on Switch.
Something came out you liked.
Ocarina on Switch. Yeah, the
so
Nintendo expansion pass finally released. So 7 N64 games and what is it, 9 Genesis games or something along those lines. And Ocarina is now on Switch. And the worst version of Ocarina is now on Switch. But it's still Ocarina on Switch, so.
Why is it the worst version?
So, if you want to get real in depth, a YouTuber who's like big in the speedrunning community for Zelda, Ocarina of Time, ZFG, made a video. It's like 15 minutes in depth talking about it. But a lot of it comes down to like some of the draw distances are messed up. They, for whatever reason, messed up like the smoke. The Dark Link fight room is a train wreck and doesn't look anything like it used to. Like, it looks worse than the N64 version. And just a bunch of like input latency and the hypersensitive Nintendo Switch controllers, Joy-Con sticks and whatnot. But I did get my N64 Switch controller in, which that's not really a problem with anymore that I've noticed, so that's a good thing. But
Hey, how is the weight of that controller?
it's a little bulky. It's a little bit lighter than a standard one, but my standard one also has an expansion pack in it, so our memory pack.
Kind of surprised it's lighter, actually.
Yeah, it's slightly lighter, but yeah, it's
interesting.
The control's great. It feels identical, stick, buttons, everything.
And it gets rid of some of the controller issues with the actual Switch controls.
Yeah, so I know, Bravo, you've played a bit of Ocarina, and Brad, I don't know how deep you got into it, but have you guys got like the slingshot or anything yet and tried aiming with it? And it's like super sensitive.
Maybe it's because I haven't played Ocarina of Time in like 14 years, but it doesn't seem that bad.
Well, it's a little extra sensitive.
What I played, the only thing that was throwing me off was the C stick stuff. Well, C buttons.
Yeah, being the stick.
Yeah, being the stick, and like you had to like flick up, and sometimes it like wasn't registering for me. And I actually noticed it from the Game of the Year win back. I played that one for the most part. And I'll be honest, it actually felt pretty good. I was kind of amazed. It was a lot better than what I expected.
Yeah, they definitely did some upscaling. Like, some of Zelda looks great, and Bravo and I played a little win back, actually. Some PvP.
Oh.
And
So we learned the funniest thing probably is no matter where you are on the map, if you use the aim feature, it just locks on to the other player.
Yeah, you can just track them across the map as they run back and forth.
So I was trying to do some like dip, dive, duck, dodge, and Joe was just sitting there watching the laser move. And I'd come around the corner, pop, pop, oh, God. It was rough.
Yeah, I think what was throwing me off is I can't remember the controls exactly because I played it right when it released. And they were all laughing at me because everybody's playing Ocarina or something decent, and I'm playing Winback. But I know that changing weapons, it was like you had to flip the stick up and down.
Yeah.
And then left and right did something else. I don't know what exactly, but
what you can do on like the typical Joy-Cons, if you hold the ZR button, your AX, BY become the C buttons as well, like the up, down, left, right.
That actually might be useful.
So, two things that I noticed about Ocarina of Time. One, the lock-on feature. It seems to be no way of unlocking from an enemy, which is very strange. So, like, I literally just like back up out of range from a target so I can unlock from whatever the heck I'm looking at. It's kind of annoying.
Was that a feature in the original game?
No.
don't think it was, but I
No,
could
you
be
can
wrong.
lock on in the original game.
No,
Yeah.
so
But you were
locking
able to
on,
not
I had
like unlock on.
I
It's
had
so
that
weird.
issue. So in that intro area, right, where it teaches you the lock on, I like read one of the signs and it's like, oh, use the
Well,
whatever
no.
button.
The when she's up on above the market, she tells you to lock on and talk to her.
Or I don't know. I used it, or I might have just been hitting buttons, trying things out, and I ended up locking onto a rock, and I couldn't get away from the rock. That was my death. That's where I
Brad
lived, and I had to
was
like
the
backflip
first rock of
over.
the game.
Yeah. Well, you know that area where you go to get the sword, and it's like it's just like a little maze,
Yeah.
fence around it. The rock right there. So I couldn't get over anything. So I had to like navigate the maze while locked on until it went away.
I know which rock you're talking about. Yeah,
Oh Jesus.
It
that's
was
But
funny.
fun times.
Bravo and I did go through and tested out every game available on it in multiplayer, and surprisingly, it was pretty good. We played Mario Kart 64 first, as you know, that was what we were most excited about to be able to play as a group.
Yeah, and it's
And
also the one that has the worst issue with like connectivity. We would we would get like maybe like a half second of misaligned connectivity. Uh, I don't know, once or twice a lap was probably the worst instance. But the video that I watched explaining it is they I can't think of the name, but basically each each connection has to be um, constantly checking with each other, and if they're off, it does a full stop to the whole game until the all everybody gets caught up to each other. So you got like a half second, maybe less, where it would just like kind of like stutter, and the little pop up would show up, and then you keep going. The
but
game itself,
also the good thing was like it didn't just happen to the non-host; it happened to both of us as we were playing.
yeah. So for like the filthy casuals, it'll be fine. Like I don't care at all. Yeah, I'm gonna have fun with it. I'm gonna play it a little bit. I'm honestly just waiting for the other games to come to the library so I can play those. I'm gonna play through Ocarina of Time. I'm gonna play Mario 64, and I'm gonna start a petition to remove Winback and get a better game slotted in there.
Whoa. I am extremely offended right now, but I plan on beating Winback first, and then everything else will come in time. I also have the N64 controller though that I'm getting, but because of the move and everything, they were like denying the charge because I don't know why. It's weird, but only Nintendo has denied any charge out of anything for me. So,
You haven't filed your paperwork telling Papa Nintendo that you moved yet.
yeah,
They
pretty
need
much.
it. They need a hard copy.
So, basically, my buddy ended up picking up two, and once I hang out with him, which I thought was gonna be tonight, but he had to go to like a hockey game or something.
That's my
So
boy.
at some point, I kind of am jealous. I kind of wish I could have gone to the hockey game, but
I bet
it's
you
all
are.
good.
You come down here, I'll take you to a real hockey game, Brad.
Yeah,
He won't. He
we hope-
lies. He
I hope
lies.
Bravo wants you, but the Penguins decided to lose and not give us Game 7 last year.
Ah man. But any other N64 stuff you guys want to discuss?
I've never. Well, okay, not N64, but the Sega stuff. I've never played Star Fox before, and Joe and I played that. And
I was 64.
Did it? Okay, okay. I thought it was Sega. Yeah. It's a pretty interesting game. I did not expect the spacecraft dueling mechanics in the game. I know almost nothing about the game, so sorry for being ignorant. But that's pretty cool. I remember my friends being super excited about that and playing it, but I just never had it or watched them play.
I used to play the crap out of that game when I was a kid. Um, at my grandma's house, she had an N64 in her bedroom for when us kids would go visit her. And that was it was that game and Cruisin' USA were the two games she had.
Yep.
I don't know what made her pick up an N64 in those two games, but it was pretty cool. I can't complain. And I ended up picking it up for the 3DS remake.
Mhm.
Because even though I probably won't play it, I mean, at some point I might pop it in, but now I feel like, well, I wasted my money a little bit because now it's on the Switch. So it's cool that it's on there.
Yeah.
I'm kind of excited to see what else they end up adding because they've been adding some weird NES games, so I could see them getting real obscure. I mean, Winback. I don't even know if anybody's ever heard of that game, obviously. I was probably the only person that saw it and was like, Winback?
I legit think it was a licensing thing. Like they were looking for games, and that one had 0 people wanting money for them to put it on the library, so they're just like, do it.
Yeah.
They probably like got paid to put Winback on there. Like, please get this. Like, can you
We're
buy this
trying to
for us?
revive this. Maybe we'll get a win back too.
There is a Winback too.
Maybe we'll get a 3.
That's the dream.
Yeah. So real quick, I have a question for you guys. What game do you? Because we know that there's going to be quite a few more games coming to the library. What game do you want to see come to the library?
Joseph first.
Well, so from what I've read through a little bit of data mining, we're apparently getting about 52 to 56 games. And I know Majora's Mask and Mario Party 1, 2, 3 are pretty much confirmed.
Wait a minute. That's going to be. You could play Mario Party 1, 2, and 3 online?
Yeah.
I better go get my gloves out.
What the heck?
Fun fact, because of the fishing game, and so I don't have it, but there's no so just imagine this, Bravo, okay? So you had to best optimize your fishing, you put your palm on the controller and you'd spin it in a circle, and that was the way. So
It would literally like burn your hand.
and it would, and so kids were having these holes in their palms because of it. So what Nintendo did to remedy it was they sent gloves out.
The
It's
grind.
But
That's
yeah,
also
and
why if you play most people's N64 who like have multiple controllers, there's always that one controller the stick's just like flopped to the side.
yeah, it's just like, super loose.
Yeah.
Crazy. But
the one game I'm gonna pick 2. GoldenEye, obviously, I'd love to see. That way we can get some multiplayer GoldenEye going, which would be awesome. And I'd really like to play through Perfect Dark again. And I think on the Switch would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, actually, any FPS with the multiplayer, if they could like create a new control scheme, like add dual analogs,
No,
for
dude.
them, that'd
Give
be
me the
kinda cool.
classics.
Have the option, maybe.
No. That's too much of an advantage. Give me old school GoldenEye.
All right, so for me, Resident Evil 2.
Oh, get out of here.
Speaking of which,
All right. Oh,
our main topic of the day.
First off, there was a game that I was certain you were gonna say, and it was Wave Race.
It is that. Bravo, play that.
Bravo, play that config music. Play it. Just play it.
Bravo, what do you got?
They have to be adding it.
Man, if they could get the multiplayer, I think Rush 2, obviously one of my favorite games ever. That would be really cool. I also think Danky Kang would be pretty cool. And I can't remember. I don't want to sound. I can never remember this game, but what is the game that you put weapons on top of vehicles in like a battle royale kind of?
Twisted Metal. It's PS1.
No. No, there's a
Oh, there
64
actually
game.
Vigilante 8.
That's Vigilante. Yeah, that game.
Yes.
Trash Rush. Give me Vigilante 8. That would be so freaking fun to play against my friends again.
Well, we know Nintendo listens to the episodes, so
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo Vigilante 8. Put it on there.
on Nintendo Switch.
At me at envision_org on Twitter when you do it, okay? Thank you.
But obviously, Wave Race would be one of my favorites. And then there is another game that I feel like it's kind of a hidden gem. It's called Blast Corps. And it's basically you're like some robot. You take control of like these different machines, and you're just destroying a town, city, whatever, in different ways. And it's surprisingly fun. Simple but fun.
Huh.
Like arcade style.
Never heard that. You know what else
Yeah.
would be a pretty cool game? Actually, it might not be because it's probably better in my memory than it is in real life, but the snowboarding game.
Snowboard Kids? Or 1080?
I think he's thinking of like this.
No, it's 1080. I remember
1080.
having a pretty good time with that. I think it might not hold up over the years, though. So
Snowboard Kids is, if you haven't seen that, it's made by Atlas, kind of a more expensive game. And it's essentially, guess, kind of like the SSX stuff, racing style, just where you're playing like these chibi, cartoony kids. And there's a real fat, chubby guy, and he's kind of funny. Makes me laugh. It's about all. All I got to add.
In-depth description.
Yeah. And on the topic of N64, I have the greatest picture of all time of me.
Good thing this is a
I'm-
podcast, sir.
Yeah, yes. Imagine the happiest child in the world
Next
holding a
to the-
Nintendo 64 controller next to my father, who looks like he wants to end everything.
The
Holding
most
an N64
unhappy
controller.
man.
sitting in a chair, one of those small like Play-Doh. I don't know. So I had this table. It was like I think it was like Play-Doh brand, and it's clearly meant for children. These little yellow chairs and this white table. Every leg of the table is a different color. Probably, if it went to my knee right now, that'd be tall. Like I'd be surprised. I probably was about that tall. To my knee, I'd say is about the height of it. Chair was
How
obviously
tall are you,
smaller.
Brad, for reference?
I'm 6'1".
How about how tall is your knee?
Knee, not 6'1".
Greater than or
Um,
less than?
less than 6'1".
Okay.
So, he's he got it. Probably fits his left ass cheek. Anyways, that's enough. Anyways, let's get to the main topic, which is Resident Evil.
I just want everybody
it's-
to know Brad has brought that picture up at least 5 times today.
It's hard
And
not to look
5
at it.
times every day since.
It's hard not to look at it because I'm staring at it.
Like anybody who's
Yeah.
came into the Discord, he's like, hey, look at my video. Look at it. Look at this. You look at this picture. That's me,
'Cause it's
but happy.
hilarious. And there's also like the Pokemon bedspread with the giant Charmander stuffed figure that I had.
Like new people pop in the Discord, and like me and Brad are hanging out, and he just pops the video. Hey, look at me.
hey.
Look at
Look at this.
look, little Brad.
I'm conveniently naked. Some reason the camera's on the bottom of my waist. I'm holding it.
Okay.
All
anyways.
right.
By the way,
What's
you
going
can join the Discord. Social link below the video here. And if you're listening on Spotify, go ahead and click that link and join the Discord. We are very open with our discussions.
Sometimes a little too open. Brad.
Hell no. Don't worry, I'm not around as much as them.
Oh, self burn. Those are rare.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah. So we can jump into Resident Evil. We decided after doing the Silent Hill discussion, we can't do the same thing as we did for Silent Hill, which is talk about all the games a little bit because there's just too many. So we're gonna just do the main series. So, essentially 0 to 8, all the numbered entries, and maybe if we have anything to mention from an offshoot game, uh, maybe we'll throw it in. But I
Or make another
doubting it.
episode just for the offshoot games.
Yeah, we'll probably end up doing that.
Yeah.
So we'll go in order of the actual series, not when they released. So we'll start with Resident Evil 0, which I have zero experience with.
Well, I'm glad we
I-
started on this one.
Starting off with a juicy
Yep.
one. Nice.
Starting off with a bang, baby. So Joe, do you have a little bit experience, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, so I've played a good chunk of this game, and I've watched like speedrunners like Bakba and Carcinogen play through it quite a bit. So Resident Evil Zero takes place before the Raccoon City incident, and you play as both Rebecca Chambers and Billy Cohen. Uh, Rebecca is pretty familiar throughout the series, and somebody you recognize, Brad, I'm sure. Billy is pretty much a one-off character, but he's actually a pretty interesting character. He was being transported. It's been a while since I played it, but I believe he's being transported as like a prisoner of some sort. And whenever the train they're on for transport gets attacked in by the monsters that it does, they're like little leeches. Um, she ends up freeing him, and you work together, and you play as both characters throughout most of the game, like at the same time. You can just flip back and forth. And there are times in the game where you have like both of them together, and you need to like switch back and forth to like solve puzzles, and it is some of the most annoying gameplay I've ever witnessed.
Really?
I
Just like poorly executed.
It's just annoying more than anything because I don't even know how to describe it. The game was originally being developed for the Nintendo 64 and released on the GameCube. I believe it was 2002. Yes,
Mhm.
2002. Um, God, it's the game itself is good. Like story-wise, it's fine. It's nothing to write home about, but it's a decent Resident Evil. It plays with fixed camera angles, and you get through some interesting areas, some fairly interesting enemies, and Rebecca and Billy are both decent characters. I personally prefer Rebecca between the two, but that's just because she is more of a somebody in the entire series.
Mm.
But yeah, you
Um,
basically start on the train, you go through, find out the big bad. Try not to go through too many spoilers as Bravo still hasn't got too deep into the series.
Oh, don't worry about me.
I'm worried about you, buddy. I'm worried about
worry about me.
you.
I haven't played it.
Yeah,
But
it's a good game.
I definitely got to get through it. At some point, whenever I get into my Resident Evil kick again, I plan on doing 0 because the Origins collection has this with it.
Yeah.
So I'll be doing 0 and 1 pretty much back to back whenever I get to that point.
Yeah. So the game releasing in 2002, graphically, it's like top tier for being a
Mm-hmm.
pretty early GameCube game. And the only real thing that like I'd have to say bad about the game is one having to deal with both characters. I don't like games that make me control more than one character at a time. And basically just not being like in the main line that was already progressed up to Resident Evil 3 at this point. It just kind of threw some people off, so critics were a little bit mixed on that. And the fact that, it played just like all the other ones, there was no real change to gameplay, just a new coat of paint and ship it out.
So the one thing I've heard about this game is that it's actually relatively difficult because of the actual like inventory of the game. So a lot of it you could drop items on the ground, so it just turns into this like this is just what I've heard. People just like chucking items everywhere and having to like just manage that. And I heard
Yeah.
that makes the game difficult and annoying. Like that's probably why it's considered not as good as the other ones because
Yeah.
like Joe said, I mean, this game looks really good. But that's because Resident Evil Remake looks really good. So
Yeah,
yeah.
so there's no item boxes, and like you said, you are able to just drop items and hand items back and forth between characters. And ammo is a problem in a lot of the games, especially during boss fights. It's quite common to end up finishing bosses like with a knife. But also, whenever you realize that that item that you didn't think you had a use for, that you dropped an hour of gameplay back, and you have to remember where you dropped it, and then go run all the way back and pick it up to bring it back, it gets old quick. But
Mm.
that's
All right.
about all I got for Resident Evil Zero. It's
Yeah.
definitely not my favorite of the series.
I couldn't imagine we were going to talk so much more about it, being that you've only played a little bit and I haven't touched it. Bravo's played it. But it's something I think is necessary to at least discuss.
I'm
But we'll.
surprised. I'm surprised you guys don't like it as much since it provides like another angle and a little bit more backstory to the mansion. You know, like the
So I think what it. So as I said, I don't know. I really don't even know anything about the story of it aspect. I the only thing I know about it of why it gets hate is, like I said, it's the fact that there's no item box, the fact that you're dropping these items on the ground, you're dealing with that item management. It just and also the two characters. I'm sure some people liked it, but
mm-hmm.
I think it was probably a little more annoying than
Yeah, the lack of
not.
convenience can easily ruin a story. Fair enough.
Yeah, yeah.
Moving
So
on.
we'll move on to the original, but we'll combine Resident Evil 1 PS1 and the remake for the GameCube because it it just makes more sense.
And the
Um,
remake's remake for the
yeah, there's a million remakes. I mean, it's been ported on a million things. So I guess technically an offshoot, but it's the same. Is Resident Evil Deadly Silence or the DS port 2? It's the same thing. It's just a remake of one. Um, this one Bravo has played a little bit of, so I'm
Mm-hmm.
excited to hear his opinion on it. Just to do anything. Do you want to do this before we do our deep dive?
No,
Or-
I think we should just jump into it.
all right, all right. Um, so the this is essentially what created survival horror. This game, by itself, and
to a
it
Western
has
audience.
yes, yeah, because they started with Sweet Home. That was kind of what the original idea was to do a remake of that, but then they created their own, which is their own franchise, and Resident Evil became a thing. And not going to get too deep into anything, but man, super cheesy lines and delivery, but it almost adds to the charm of the game. I think if if it had better voice acting, it probably wouldn't be remembered as well, which sounds weird, but and maybe I'm wrong on that.
No, it
It,
definitely is a sticking
yeah,
point
it's
for
like
the game.
huge. So the Jill sandwich obviously is a huge line. Barry is just a boss, in my opinion. But here's, I think, we'll start out with one question: who do you choose to play if you're going to play this, Jill or Chris?
Jill, period.
Jill.
Yeah, I think it's the easy go-to. Jill is definitely the master of unlocking. Is the one to choose.
She's
Um,
also just like a cooler character to me. I don't know.
yeah, I especially like the original design for Chris. Not that Chris's design has gotten that good, but in the future, but he looks so boring and generic in this game. um, but yeah, they had some jump scares and whatnot, but it's funny how thinking back, kind of like horror movies, how this game is considered scary, but now if you went back to it, it's like it just has horror elements to it. It's not really scary. Um, and Bravo had that opinion. It's kind of funny. He almost is like, "Is this a scary game? 'Cause it's not scary."
Yeah,
We're like,
it's like a thriller, you know, like
mm-hmm,
it's not jump scares aside because I think jump scares are cheap and should be done sparingly in any
mm-hmm,
setting. Uh, you should get the fear from the, and this is a very new thought to me because I don't really play horror games. as people who listen to the podcast know. I think that the setting and environment really make the horror game, or really make the horror, and then the thing that you're being fearful of, showing up in the right moment. Timing is important, but whenever you just do a jump scare, of course you're gonna get startled, but it's not because of anything in the game. Oh, it's dark, and then they turned the lights on, and there was a face in front of you. Ooh. But if you can scare somebody by making them walk down a hallway with the right music, having read a letter or gotten some deep dive into, ooh, what is this thing? What's going to pop out? And your mind starts making all these scenarios or whatever. And then the thing happens, even if it's not a jump scare, even if it's just like something slow that happens, like you can really get the blood pumping. And that's where the thrill comes
That's
from.
it's hilarious because right after the podcast, we actually sat down and watched PT a playthrough, and I about pooped myself at one point. I don't even remember what it was. Oh, it was when Lisa came. She was like in the door crack.
Yeah,
It was
she
like
yeah.
she was in the
just the
bathroom and you were
suspense.
interrupting her.
Mm-hmm. The suspense just getting to it, like the
She was
noises and
pinching one
everything.
off, and you're in there peeking, and she, hey, hey, get out of here.
Forgot the locked door.
But yeah, we after the Silent Hill podcast, we did watch through PT because these two goobers refused to do it without me forcing them.
Mm.
It was pretty good.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was a great watch, honestly.
But back to Resident Evil here.
Yeah.
So, fun fact for you guys, Brad, I'm pretty sure you probably know this, but bravo. Resident Evil was originally being developed for the Super Nintendo and was supposed to be a 2D game. And then they scrapped that idea and were like, let's make it a first person shooter. And they were going through with that for a while. And then all of a sudden, Shinji Mikami went through in the third iteration to make it a third person game more similar with the fixed camera angles to Alone in the Dark.
Wasn't it to compete with another game uh, that had just recently come out or something?
So that Silent Hill did that to
Okay,
compete with
okay.
Resident Evil.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I honestly, the game had 10 controls and the fixed camera views were changed all the time, and honestly, it worked really well because while it seems dated nowadays, it makes a lot of sense. Like, and it's way better than like so. For example, if you play the like Silent Hill 2, for example, where you can choose to have the analog 360 control or the tank controls. Um, when the camera shifts, there are so many times where you'll be like, boop, boop, just like kind of, you just keep popping back and forth because the camera changes and then your character goes right back out where it was going because it doesn't know.
You're actually
what's
able to do
going
that
on.
in the Resident Evil remake as well. And
Mm-hmm.
we actually have Bravo playing on tank controls. And
Tank controls are superior. I mean, there's just no way to really play the game without it. I also think
Exactly.
that the camera angles that they chose add to the setting, like to the environment, to make it a little bit more scary. Like because they can, like a movie, they can have something come off camera to attack the player. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you know, which is similar to the movies where, like The Walking Dead, a zombie comes out of nowhere and like bites them. But if you were looking through the person's eyes, you would have saw the zombie coming, from a mile away.
He's like foot hanging out in the corner of the
Yeah.
room.
so I was watching the bit that Bravo did play through Resident Evil, and I was cracking up whenever you get upstairs above like the crow room, and there's the hallways with the mirrors. And there's like the one zombie that's standing that you could see the reflection in the mirror. And Bravo just stands there looking at him, giggling. He's like, I see him. I don't know what to do, but I see him.
I beat him up. It's fine.
But
Yeah.
Oh, I remember. So I hadn't figured it out, but there's the hallway with the shield with spikes and the
trap.
Yeah, it's a trap, and I'm like, I know what this is gonna do, but I gotta do it. You know.
So he picks up the key, and
It's funny.
the statue comes squeezing him down.
I thought I could get out, but I didn't expect the walls to move on me.
But yeah, I mean, Resident Evil is a classic. The original is, if we're talking without including the remakes, the original is my by far my favorite.
Mm. Um, so I've actually never completed the PlayStation 1 playthrough. I've only done the remake.
I actually
So
haven't completed the PlayStation 1 playthrough either because I get stuck on the final boss.
it's it's strange because I don't know what exactly it is. It feels harder.
It definitely is, and I don't know the exact reasoning behind it, but it definitely is harder than like the remake. And it's been quite a while since I played the PS1 version, so whenever
hmm
I end up picking that up again, I'll definitely make it a point to go back and finish it.
I've tried to play it like a handful of times. In the probably in the past few years, and I basically get to yawn the snake.
Yeah,
Isn't that his name?
I think so.
I think his name's Yawn. Um, and I just don't have the skill to, because there's no quick turn in the
Yeah,
PS1 game. So I never had the skill to like turn around a fire, but I'm pretty sure that if you go in there without ammo, it's kind of similar to the Silent Hill fight where um I can't remember exactly, but I think somebody comes and helps you or something. The guy that got bit by Yawn actually, then you're timed to go get the medicine and bring it back to him.
mm,
If you save him, I'm pretty sure he comes in and helps you if you don't have ammo and starts firing away.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, we don't have to go too deep into like story in every area, but the mansion I think is probably one of the best areas in horror games in general.
yeah, it's
Like,
so iconic at this point. It's
yeah,
Resident Evil
and
definitely being a staple of horror.
and honestly, it's one of the things that makes, at least for me, made me like Resident Evil 7 a lot. Is that they kind of went back to a similar like environment of this gigantic Louisiana house, um, that's basically like a mansion. But we'll get to that later on.
Yeah, I intentionally didn't try getting too deep story wise in this one because Bravo is currently playing through it. I know
Mhm.
he does tell us not to worry about him, but I still want to keep it fresh because I'm enjoying watching him.
So Bravo talked to me a little bit, and he was telling me how he felt for it, and I said he should share it because yeah. So what are your thoughts on it?
Um, horror games are not my thing. Okay, I don't necessarily see the appeal. I think it's a okay story. I think that in the time it was definitely unique. Uh, I don't really like the aiming, and that I guess that's about it. I mean, it's a decent game. It's just not my kind of game, so I can't really critique it too hard.
So, and a bit of reference, probably. Have you played any more since you played whenever I was watching that day?
No, but I did
Okay.
I did watch and read more about it because obviously I researched the rest of the series for this
hmm
episode. So
Mm,
Okay. So, for reference to Bravo's progress through it, he made it in Fast the First Zombie upstairs up to the trapped key room. He made it out back down the like into the crypt and was able to use the arrowhead and got downstairs. From He then went into like the map room, first floor map room, and went like into the back hallway to get the knife, but he did not go down the hallway or anywhere past that yet.
I feel
mm.
like I'm being critiqued. Why do you have my actions memorized?
Because I was telling Brad as you were playing about it, and Brad kept asking me, he's like, did he get to the hallway?
Well,
No.
I'm pretty sure you were streaming it, and I was listening in when I was working.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was listening to you guys talk about it, and I was just texting Joe, and I was like, "Where is he now? is, is he there?" But yeah. Also, I think Bravo will like this because I know how he feels about remakes, essentially. So I know he's not a big fan of somebody just slapping a new coat of paint with doing nothing to it, but this game actually added stuff, and they added a really cool character called Lisa Trevor. And I'll leave it just to kind of that, but it's actually a nice addition to the game. It wasn't in the original game on the PS1, but it's like a little side story.
Oh, yeah.
And
So I do have a question about the actual game because I'm confused by what I found researching the game. Are the storage containers around the mansion, are they accessible anywhere or are they local? Because I saw stuff that says that there's storage chests in the game, right?
Yes.
yes,
I saw stuff that said the storage chests are one big chest essentially. Like if you get one in one spot, it has the exact same stuff you put into it on another spot. And then I read other stuff that says it's not, and they're individual.
I think by default it is where like they're shared, but I don't know if it's either a mode or possibly a mod.
Mm.
I thought
Um,
I think in the original, like the PS1 version, they're separate, but in the remake they're connected.
maybe that's what I'm remembering.
Oh, so
But
maybe they made it easier because people were complaining.
I'm sure they did because
It's just a quality of life thing.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get farther into the game, well, like in the mid part of the game, you would literally be running back and forth, and there'd be like no enemies.
so speaking of which too, they made the game pretty difficult because of places like Blockbuster and rentals being so popular back then. And they wanted people to buy the game. They didn't want them to be able to beat it in a rental period.
Classic.
So that's pretty cool little tip. But
For
anyways,
those
do
of
we
you
do we have
listening,
anything else?
Blockbuster was a franchise where they would rent out movies and games to people for a select number of days. I know
Or a
it's
select number of dollars.
I know it's a strange concept. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
The Boomer and Bravo's coming out.
I had to.
Little rental stores back in the day. But anyways, do we have anything else to say about Resident Evil 1?
Worth a play if you have not. The remake is fantastic.
And because it's spooky time, it's probably on sale for like $5. Probably real cheap. Anyways, so we'll move on to Resident Evil 2. We're going to talk about both PS1 and the remake, the RE2 remake. That spoilers, I think, is probably the best game in the series.
The remake for sure.
Yeah, the remake is amazing. So Resident Evil 2 just was kind of considered by everybody bigger and better in every way because I think it, I mean, I love the mansion, honestly. But people like how they made it to where you're basically in a Raccoon City, and then you go to RPD, which gives you the vibes of the mansion too, because it's a big place you're exploring the whole time, but you get to explore outside as well. So it's a little bit deeper. That's all. So Leon and Claire are in the game. I also think that they are superior characters to Jill and Chris. That's just me.
I would agree. Leon is the superior male character, but I'm still a
Hmm.
Jill fanboy. Even though I love me some Claire, Jill
Yeah,
has my heart.
I think what it is I
Claire's
I
the better Redfield by far.
yeah. Oh yeah, by far. I think what it is and we'll get to it, RE3 remake. Um has a little more sour of a taste in my mouth for Jill.
Okay, I don't even like. I completely wiped the 3 remake from memory because I felt so ripped off. But we'll get to
Yeah,
that next. We'll get to that.
we'll get to it. We'll get to it. It's coming up soon. So Resident Evil 2, once again, I've played a bit of the PS1 game, but I've never beaten it. And I've played RE2 Remake numerous times. It's probably my favorite horror game of all time, and it's easily in my top 10. Off the top of my head, I can't think of what my list is right this second, but it's up there. I mean, right now, Super Auto Pets is number one, but
Stop it. No.
I had to throw it in there, okay?
Do not
so-
look that game up.
So Resident Evil 2, I'm going to mainly talk about from the perspective of the remake. I think
I think
it
we should
does.
do the PS1 and then go into the remake after.
I don't have much to say other than it.
You said
It
you
feels
played through
very-
the PS1 version, or
I've
some
only
of it.
played. I played through some of it. I got to like, I let's see, got through the city into RPD. Met Marvin. Marvin's his name, right? I'm having a blank.
It's weird to me
Yes.
that you guys are
Yes.
differentiating the original and the remake.
So the
So-
order of the game is actually different between 2
What?
and the remake. You go through like certain parts a little bit different in
Mhm.
2 and the remake.
Hmm.
So,
So
technically,
I
2
didn't do
separate
much.
games.
So this is
Yeah,
one observation that I've made. Just because you two are the only horror guys that I know, I'm going to
Mm,
make an assumption. So, beat me up for that if you want. But, all the other games we've talked about, it seems like horror games, you guys just, for lack of a better word, nitpick the the various differences between the games, right? Because like the original and the remake, they have like slightly different things, and it changes things up. I feel like other games you're not so critical about, but with horror games, why is it so important that you go down one path versus the next, or vice versa, or other? Have you guys noticed that about yourselves when you talk about horror games?
No.
I don't feel like I nitpick stuff like
Nitpick
okay,
is the
so
wrong
we-
word. Like I said, for the lack of a better word, it's you pay attention to the minor differences between the remake and the original of these different games.
I think it's probably just because there are a lot more remakes in horror games than other stuff. Like I can't even think of many like remasters. Like obviously there's Diablo,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean think about it. They've remade Resident Evil 1, 2, 3. They're working on 4. They did a 4 VR version. They've ported 4 onto everything. They've done a lot of like
I-
changes to it.
So there's definitely the fact that there's more remakes, but I also think it's the fact that like Brad and I are both really passionate about the Resident Evil series
For
as a
sure.
whole. So I feel like that has most of the reasoning behind it,
And that
just
passion definitely shows through. And I've enjoyed this month of horror, watching you guys talk about the different things. But it is something I just noticed. I wanted to bring
Brad
up.
is famous for telling me I nitpick every game I play. So
Joe is I'm amazed that he speaks highly about The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time because he is so critical of everything.
All
Like
right,
it
all right.
amazes me.
Real talk.
Anyways.
Joe, earmuffs. Brad, it's because he has nostalgia for the game, okay?
the
Like,
game's just
Mhm.
perfect.
No, earmuffs. Earmuffs. You can't hear us.
I don't hear it, but I know that the game is perfect.
It's because however old he was when he first played that game, like it is seared into his brain was still absorbing information. He was like, "This is the greatest thing of all time."
It's like me with Diablo 2. Like
Yeah,
I know,
yeah.
but the thing is I'm cognitive of the fact that I know it's not
Okay.
perfect.
You tell me a game that has higher than a 99% on Metacritic.
I don't care. Everybody has the same
Resident
little
Evil 2.
child.
Actually, I think Resident Evil
uh,
2 is like 81.
Yeah.
Yeah, the surprisingly, Resident Evil games don't have that super high of ratings.
Oh,
They get good ratings for like horror games.
here's a
Mhm.
fun game that we should play, and for the listeners, you could play with your friends. I don't have a good name for it, but it's something that me and my friends play. Is trying to find a movie that is popular with the people, but horribly rated. Right. So like you're talking about these cult following shows that have a less than 10% approval rating, but for some reason everybody likes it. You know, like it's almost because you like it because it's bad. You know,
There's a lot of honestly, I feel like most movies that like get like a 30 or less
Okay.
rating.
yeah.
Silent Hill, the 2006 movie, Metascore 31, user score 7.9.
That's one of yeah.
But back to Resident Evil 2.
yeah. Back to Resident Evil.
The first game, the PS1 version of the game, was released in 1998. It was ported to basically everything. It ended up on Windows, Nintendo 64, Dreamcast, remade on the GameCube, and then they also released a handheld from like Game.com with a 2.5D version or something like that. But whatever. And then it was also remade for the PS4, Xbox One, and Windows in 2019. And I there really wasn't much difference graphically between Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2, like the original versions. And you could definitely tell that as soon as they like shipped one out the door, they immediately started on two before it even like hit public. And it was only made by a team of about 50 people, and it took them just under 2 years to slap this bad boy together. And this one I have not personally played on the PlayStation or like the old version, but I've watched playthroughs from all the big Resident Evil streamers and whatnot, and they generally seem to favor the old one just for its charm over the remake, which
Yeah, I think that's very similar to what we were kind of talking about. I think it's rose tinted glasses a lot. Here's the thing. We're probably the very minority of people who love Resident Evil but have not played the PS1 games. Like, you know, to that extent, right?
yeah, it's on my to-do list and it will
Yeah.
be completed.
Well, you've got a perfect way of the Vita because that was actually my original plan, and I'm like, it's not worth it to me.
Well, I have the
Vita's
Vita, but I also have my PS1 right behind me, and that's how it's going to happen.
Yeah, I think a Vita is a good option though for it. But yeah, the same thing. I mean, the controls and everything. I can't remember if they added quick turns or anything like that to the game. Um, but they did add the dual scenario, which obviously we kind of know. But I think they were different enough compared to the first game. Like the first game, yes, they were different, but I feel like just because they were on separate disc, it felt like I don't know, it just felt even like more of a departure between the two.
Oh.
But they were combined enough at the same time.
And my boy Tofu made an appearance.
Oh.
Where's the duck?
Tofu. My tofu duck hiding in the closet. But I gotta find a place for those ducks too.
But yeah, how does it work if you get an S on X difficulty or whatever, and both playthroughs you unlock Hunk's playthrough, and then once you
Yeah,
complete Hunks, you unlock Tofu?
I think tofu is literally like you have to do it on both of them on the hardest difficulty and get like S or S plus or some crap. It's like
Yeah.
stupid hard.
So with S or S plus, you can only save like 3 times, and you have to beat a certain time, and no deaths.
Mm-hmm.
And
Basically,
then
you have to be a speedrunner of the game.
then you unlock Hunk's playthrough, and if you complete Hunk's playthrough, which is notoriously difficult on S or better again, then you unlock Tofu, which is literally like I believe it's Leon's A playthrough, and you are a chunk of tofu with a knife and only a knife,
Yeah.
and it is
Sounds about
the
right.
greatest thing. It was like they used the tofu as like a test dummy whenever they were developing the game, just like to slot in place of like the character model for Leon or Claire, and then they ended up just including it as a secret unlock, and now it's
That's
like
the
notorious for being like the
that
hardest way.
is my favorite thing about old games. Little things like that. Like they don't do that anymore, I don't feel. Like, can you
No,
imagine if they added like I don't know, like The Last of Us, and it's like Ellie became a piece of cheese or something? Like,
Everybody's so serious these days.
yeah,
speaking of The Last of Us actually, Naughty Dog and the developers were very outspoken that they took a ton of inspiration from Resident Evil 2.
yeah, I'm not surprised, not at all. But as I said, I don't have a ton of experience, so I really can't speak a ton to RE2 PS1. Um, Other than pretty much what Joe said. So
Mhm.
I don't know if you want to hop into the remake.
So
Let's
I've
do it, dude.
I've purchased Resident Evil 2 on Steam. It's currently on sale, 60% off. Just so anybody knows, when you listen to this, it'll be gone.
Hmm.
I think it goes to November 2nd for the sale, so
Okay, when you
You have
listen
a
to
day or
this,
two.
you have a day or two.
You got a prayer.
Uh,
You got a prayer to get it.
but my loose plan is to play through the rest of 1, play through 2, and then jump to 7.
I thought we were doing 4, then 7.
4 and then 7. You heard it here first, folks.
I will tell you, bravo. I think you're going to struggle with 1 just because of I think it's a little harder. I think 2 you will love.
Yeah,
And you will
2's
actually like you're gonna love it, and you're gonna actually like want to play it, unlike where it's probably feeling like pulling teeth right now playing 1. Um, just because you're not a huge fan of horror games, like you said. But you said you like Dead Space, didn't you?
Yeah.
You were enjoying it. Okay, so
But Dead Space, again, is not really a horror. It's more like a thriller type.
yeah. So RE2 remake is more similar to
Yeah,
Dead Space
it's more of
than
a
RE1.
shoot 'em up kind of a game, to be honest.
Don't you dare. Don't you dare, Bravo.
But anyways, so
The
all
remake.
right, we'll ask the question also. Leon or Claire, who do you pick?
Jill.
My man.
My man.
Ah man.
So I like Claire as a character probably equal to Leon. Whenever I played through the game the first time, I did the Leon playthrough. Because I knew that I played both and Leon was listed first.
Mhm.
That is my only reasoning I picked Leon over Claire.
Well, all right. So say you're gonna sit down because we've played it enough where it's just pick whoever you'd like to play it more, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you picking?
If I were for an A playthrough, if I were to sit down and pick one up right now, it would be Leon because I don't like the Sherry
Mm,
sequence for Claire.
okay. I always pick Leon because I like the shotgun better than the grenade launcher.
Yeah, I'm indifferent. I use the pistol almost through the entire game. So
Shotgun's just my favorite. Like,
yeah, because you could
'cause-
actually hit with it.
exactly, and I like seeing blowing. I like blowing legs off and stuff easy.
Shots fired.
Listen, it's a
Brad
known.
fires a lot of them before he hits
It's
something.
that was pretty good. It's a known fact that my aim is atrocious, and it's impressive I get through any horror games because of
But
limited ammo.
fun fact about Resident Evil 2: whenever I first stumbled upon Bradley in his stream, and he was talking about how he likes horror games and all this, and we were talking about Resident Evil, and like, oh, 2 days later, Resident Evil 2 remake got announced, and Brad and I were both just sitting there, kind of looking at each other like, "This is happening."
No, it was Resident Evil 3 we were talking about because I don't know if you remember, I told you I downloaded the demo for Resident Evil 2 and I didn't like it, so I didn't buy it right away.
Oh, it was 3. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Resident Evil
I
3.
downloaded the demo for 2 and played through it multiple times and loved it.
So that was right before I got to my like once I started playing Resident Evil 2 was when my like horror like
Yeah, I remember you
collection, the
said that.
addiction, everything really took off. So I don't remember why. I think it was just I wasn't used to the whole, all right, they drop you in and you have no idea where you're going. You don't know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't used to the Resident Evil formula of, all right, you're picking up the keys and you got to unlock these doors and everything. Like I was in that center part of RPD, and I just walked around that whole demo, and I'm like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing right now.
You know what? That reminds me. That's something that I respect about Resident Evil is it doesn't treat you like a child. It actually
No hand
respects you.
holding.
Yeah, I like games. I like developers that say, "Hey, we know the audience that we're trying to appeal to. This is not for tiny children. So figure this one
Hmm.
out, boys." And they just give you the controls. And you got to figure it out.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
No.
I'm a little impatient with horror games like this, so it's a little slow paced for me. So it's hard for me to get through this first game. But
Well, that's the thing I think that happens is once you get through the first one and you understand, because all of the games are pretty similar, with their how they're structured of, right, you're kind of walking around, there's a bunch of locked things and you're
mm,
slowly gathering stuff. It's
The
kind of like
first three,
Metroidvania.
and
Yeah,
then
first
7,
three
8.
and then 7 and 8 too. So they're a lot like that. And once you learn, like you play through one, you learn that you almost enjoy that first playthrough because you're like, ooh, I don't know where anything is, and you get to like take it all in.
mm-hmm.
Because after the words, yeah, when you learn is you learn the layout of that game so well from being lost so much that when you play
You
the
could
new
just
game, then
draw the map by hand.
yeah, you're just, going with your eyes closed, like, all right, I'm going through this door, that door, here, there,
Yeah, I mean,
up the stairs.
I know you were around when I was playing through Village, probably, but my first playthrough 8 hours. My second was like 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's it's definitely something nice. Like it took me numerous days to beat a Resident Evil 2. Like
I beat
numerous
it
days.
in a day. The remake. I played it at midnight and was done with it by like noon. I was
Yeah.
so excited.
No life it.
I 100% did. Like,
I wish I had a save that said how many hours. Like it felt like it took a while, but like I said, it was kind of my first time experiencing a lot of it.
yeah.
So for me, um, like I didn't understand the whole tyrant stuff. Like he actually freaked me out because I wasn't used to um the whole being chased, and on top of that, I didn't realize that you're just straight up faster than him, so he just doesn't really catch you as long as you run,
Yeah.
which is you know kind of ruins the fun when you figure that out.
Resident Evil
But
2 also introduces us to Ada, who is one of my favorite characters of the series.
yep, Ada, good old
She's
Ada and Leon.
an amazing character, and I love the writing of her. Just so mysterious.
hmm And I think overall, like monster designs, whatnot too. Like on obviously zombies are they're just zombies, but like the lickers are like super creepy. Um,
How they make them look in the remake is phenomenal.
and
And
like
the
they're
remake is
so hard.
graphically is just so good.
It's crazy. Honestly, even today, like when did that game come out? 2017.
19.
The remake came in 2019. I for some reason I
Yeah,
thought it was.
2019.
Oh wow, that's newer than I thought. Um, but holy crap, that game is gorgeous, like super gorgeous. Um, and to me, it's too bad that like we said, we'll get to it 3, but they have the right mix of everything, the horror elements, the shooting. It's like getting the best of all worlds for horror games from a
Yeah,
RE3
so
standpoint.
for reference, as opposed to being the fixed camera angles and the like clunky tank controllers, you go to more of a Resident Evil 4 type playstyle, which is third person over the shoulder shooting,
But
which
big but you can move while you're aiming, which you can't do in Resident Evil 4.
You can in Resident Evil 2 remake?
Yes,
Are you sure?
think so. Unless I'm completely, I could have sworn I was able to move back while panicking and shooting. Now I'm trying to look up something real quick, but
I don't
either way.
think you
Oh, maybe you
can.
can't.
I don't
No,
think
I
so.
think you.
No, because I know. No, you
No, you
definitely
can.
can't.
I think I'm watching it play because I just pulled up a thing. I think the guy was moving back while aiming. You move like pretty slow though.
Okay, well, while you're figuring that out, when you played through this, what difficulty did you play on?
I just
The
chose
remake.
normal.
Okay, so I did hardcore for my first playthrough simply because of the fact that the ink ribbons weren't a
Hmm.
thing in normal or the easy. And I felt that was a pretty core mechanic to the old Resident Evil type game. But I did, and I know many people aren't a fan of the third person aspect of the remake as opposed to the fixed camera angle, but I thought it was the better route to go and opens it up to a broader audience.
It I think that it's a good thing that they added the mixture. So I like the fact that they have like the easy, normal, hard, obviously, and had the ink ribbons because taking away the ink ribbons, yes, negative for fans of the old games, but just opens up for people like me where I just, jumped in at that point and I didn't really know, or like Bravo if he's jumping into it in the beginning. Like it's kind of unforgiving if you used to jump into hardcore, it'd be pretty rough.
I just wish they would have, like, hardcore. I struggled getting through because of, it was my first time playing through Resident Evil 2 per se, outside of like getting to the gun shop in the PlayStation 1 version. But
Mm.
I wish there was just a setting to use ink ribbons for like normal or easy. Like just ink ribbon yes or no. That's all.
Just increase the amount of them that you get in places.
Not you could do that or just give me the option. Like if I want to turn the ink ribbons off, I could just go into the settings and turn them off
So you're
and
saying
save when I want.
you don't want ink ribbons on,
I want ink ribbons.
and you don't get them on the easier difficulties?
You only get them on hardcore.
Oh, so you can save anytime you want on the normal.
Correct.
Easy.
At one
So
of the save spots.
also going back to the moving, so you can move while you're aiming, and all it does is just makes your aiming reticle larger and harder to hit things.
Oh, well, I did not even notice. And I probably stood still whenever I was shooting all the time.
Yeah, see, I'm surprised that you, because I was gonna say I'm like I 100% remember it because I remember from just like semi speed running it.
Up the
Like,
steps. I remembered up the steps now. Like you keep tapping.
yeah, because you like full sprint and you're just like boom, shoot somebody in the leg to stall them out.
Yeah, but I mean, you like stop and shoot them. You're not full sprinting when you shoot.
You slow down.
Yeah.
But anyways, um, yeah, the Sherry section was pretty meh.
Yeah, I did
Um,
not enjoy it at all.
yeah, I also think, trying to think of an area. Um, so no, I'm thinking of three. Never mind.
Ugh.
Um, but I do actually. There is a spot that I'm not a huge fan of. It's when in Leon you see Ada, and then it's when you fight William Birkin the second time, I believe, and then you can do the fight without firing if you go over and you like hit the button, and then this like crane thing comes and smacks him.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
I didn't care for that area that
Yeah,
much.
I ended up smacking myself with that thing more times than I like to admit.
Yes,
But then
it's very
after
common.
I beat the game, I learned about the knife being attached to frame rate, and I just
Mhm.
shred them at this point.
Yeah, I didn't have that. I didn't have that perk because I was playing on PS4,
Yeah.
so no knife fun for me.
Sucks for you, nerd.
Yeah.
But Resident Evil 2 Remake, by far my favorite Resident Evil as of now.
Yeah, easily. And all of like the extra modifications and stuff that you can add to your guns and everything, like it just was so cool. Like I absolutely loved it. It was just a perfect amount of like inventory management. Like it wasn't inventory management testress like Resident Evil 4, but you know, you didn't have
I
to
wish it
manage.
was.
I do too, honestly. That's like so good. Um but it was just you know, it's very satisfying when you're sitting there and you have your basic pistol and you start adding all the attachments to it and it becomes this beast.
Yeah,
Um
across all Resident Evil games, I will keep that basic pistol as my primary weapon as long as I can.
mhm,
Just because the cutscenes they always just have the pistol, and I've made it a
mhm,
point that I'm gonna stick to the canon way to play it.
mhm. I always just love rolling around with a shotgun, so if I can use a shotgun, I always try to.
I'm also
But
that guy that likes to try to save my like heavy ammo because what if I need it for the next boss, and then I beat
oh
the
yeah.
game and I'm like have 800 shotgun shells and 4,000 machine gun rounds.
I'm always I conserve my ammo. And definitely like the
You
shotgun is
conserve it, but
usually
you
like a
just miss when you shoot, so you burn through
yeah.
it.
The shotgun is like the panic button essentially for me. And I want the shotgun over the grenade launcher. That's all. Even though grenade launcher makes more sense if you're gonna panic and do anything, you want to shoot a grenade at somebody.
Yeah, but
Feel
you also don't want to shoot yourself with a grenade.
that's
See,
true.
I see your problems are you're bringing guns to a knife fight.
In Resident Evil 2 Remake, you are correct, sir. Yeah, the knives in Resident Evil 2's remake, like I said, are attached to frame rate, so each frame the knife hits and does damage. So the speedrunning categories are broken up into like 30 frames per second, 60 frames, 144.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's pretty
Because
cool.
when you're fighting a boss, you just take a knife and just start swiping. And if you have 144 frames, you do more damage than a PS4 player can.
Swiper, no swiping.
What a noob. It's PS4 players. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I should probably move on to the next game. Um it is, I think, the best of the series, in my opinion. I think it's the best for newcomers as it has the newer control schemes, feels more modern, very easy to pick up and play. Don't have you don't have to know any other story behind it. You can
Talking
just
about
hop
three,
in
Two.
for two.
two.
For
Okay,
two. Yep.
because you said
Two
let's
remake.
move on, and then
Stuck
Yeah.
to where we were. Yeah, it's just Brad talk.
okay,
Yeah. Now we're moving to three.
okay.
Now we're moving to 3. But in 2,
Okay.
Yeah, real quick too. But we'll talk about three. I've never touched the PS1 game. I do know that the PS1 version is significantly superior because it's much longer than the remake of 3. So, Joe, have you played any of the PS1?
I have not played it personally, but I have watched my cousin play through a good chunk of it on the PS1.
Okay.
And I've watched speedruns and playthroughs.
Mm. I've watched so there's Maximilian dude. He's a streamer and he is mainly like a fighting game streamer, but he is hardcore, like super hardcore fan of Resident Evil. So I always watch all of his playthroughs, and he's very knowledgeable, does well. So there is fun. I've watched him play bits and pieces of it also, and um, as I said, I don't know much, but I know that they cut a lot of the stuff. And like we were talking about before, when they announced Resident Evil 3 remake, Joe and I were kind of like little giddy kids getting all excited because it looked gorgeous. This game looked absolutely gorgeous. And it still does. I mean,
And
it is
Resident
a
Evil
good looking.
3, like the PS1, is like a game that I've had on my bucket list to play forever
Hmm.
because it's just so widely loved by the community. But I just never got around to playing the original. And then they were like, "We're remaking it," and I was just like, "Oh my god!"
Hmm.
But it's going to
Yeah.
be
So,
different, so you're still going to have to go back and play the original
oh,
one.
I
I
don't
have to.
even acknowledge that the Resident Evil 3 remake exists.
So I
Fair enough.
tried. This is spoilers, as what Joe already spoiled his thoughts, as you could tell. I tried so hard to like keep a positive mindset on this game, and I was like try to tell Joe it wasn't that bad. It was, and then like every time, so I've tried to go back to it a couple times now. And I'm like, hey, I'll give it a shot. Here, this is what I will give the game. Okay. Intro of the game, I don't care for it. It's like way too cutscene heavy and takes forever to get to the action. But once I would say you get to where you can like roam around the city, um, I think that that is the best part of the game. And if they were able to expand on that, it would have been a very good game. And because there's a lot more exploring of the city than what they gave us. And essentially, the best part of the game was the demo that they gave us. If you played the demo, and it just goes straight downhill from there. Um, Especially when you get to there's a sewer part, and this is what I was thinking about for Resident Evil 2. You get into the sewer and exploring there. I lose all interest. That every time I play the game, I go from enjoying it to I just turn it off and never play it again. It's rough. So,
The,
um,
so my favorite thing about this game is Jill's character model is phenomenal. The
oh, it
graphics
looks so
in
good.
the graphics in the small bit of the town you actually get to play are ridiculous. Some of the best graphics like on the market. And the style they put it in the third person, just like the Resident Evil 2 remake, phenomenal. And then you play through the game that they charged $60 for. You play for 3 hours and you're done. And
Yep.
you're just
And
like,
that's
what?
so here's what they basically I think was the mentality of Capcom at this point. So they released it with what was it called? Resident Evil Resistance?
Hmm?
Or is that what it was?
I believe it was Resistance, yeah.
Yeah, which is the multiplayer game mode. It's like a standalone multiplayer game. They packaged them together, and I think they were like, "Oh, we could cut corners in the single player because we got this multiplayer." Nobody wants multiplayer with Resident Evil. They've tried it so many times. It's failed almost every single time. Just stop it. Like if you're going to do it, you put very little resources into that compared to the single player because that's what people are buying the game for. Um, yeah, it's super disappointing. Even taking your time. I mean, I think if you're literally squeezing the life out of that game, it's like at max 4.5, maybe 5 hours if you're completely brain dead. Um, it's pretty bad, and it's just frustrating. Um, it just doesn't feel like a Resident Evil game
The game
to
had
me.
so much potential, man.
It really did.
The little bit of the city that you get just makes you want so much more, and you only
Hmm.
get it for like an hour of gameplay, if that.
It's just I think the biggest thing is it's
That's a
pathetic
third of the
that
game, sir.
Yeah, and it's it's honestly like I've never been so disappointed in a game, and this game made me like truly scared of a Resident Evil 4 remake because I love Resident Evil 4 so much.
I think you don't have to be worried because I think everybody understands how beloved it is, including Capcom. So you got to think they handed Resident Evil 3 off to a outside company. It was not developed by
That
Capcom.
company, uh, according to my research, it was developed and published by Capcom.
So I think it wasn't like the main like it wasn't the same makers of RE2 remake. Essentially,
Like a different
it
group within
could have been like
company.
the C team.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
I don't even. Well, they should have all been fired.
Yeah. So it was pretty bad. And I don't know. I feel like Nemesis, they like did him dirty. He looks cool and cool design and everything, but I think Resident Evil 2 just does literally everything better than like Resident Evil 3. And it's sad that like you can't like there's no um like body damage like in Resident Evil 2. So like you could literally see the damage from shooting a zombie in the leg in Resident Evil 2. And in this game, it's just like it's a clean blow off. Like you don't see any damage, just goes boom, just like falls off, essentially. Where
Yeah.
you could like damage it on different sides and everything.
Also, this game has one of the most forgettable characters, in my opinion, in Carlos.
That
And
hair though.
yeah, it
Is he the
didn't look
shaggy
good.
like afro?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Carlos Oliveira.
How can you
and
forget that?
he is the most bland character in this iteration of the game.
Yeah. And I don't know what he was in the PS1 game. I don't know if he was like was he even a part of it or just like a small side character? Was he actually playable? That I don't
I
know.
don't remember per se.
Yeah. Anyways, we don't have to beat a dead horse. The game is very
Okay.
disappointing. I would probably just say skip it. It's really not worth picking up. Unless it's like $5, then I guess maybe you could pick it up because obviously it looks great. You're going to visually get a AAA title, but you'll be disappointed compared to 2.
I don't expect to
Um,
see much of your visually AAA title.
exactly. But we might as well go to I would say, fan favorite of the bunch, which is Resident Evil 4. This is the one that everybody talks about the most, and they think it's like one of the best games of all time. Yada yada yada. I I think the game is great. I think it's going to be very exciting seeing this one be remade though, because um, it has a mixture of modern and tank controls, which is interesting, but it takes a little bit getting used to, which is one of the reasons why I don't think Bravo, when jumping into it, will possibly like it as much. Like,
If he
I've had a
goes
couple.
from 1 to 2 to 4, he's not going to enjoy it as much if he went like 1-4 and then came back to the remake of 2 in the future.
Yeah, because I've had my buddy try to play it, and it's like you literally have to like flip a switch in your head to be like, okay, this is how it is. I don't know
Yeah.
why. Obviously, if you've played it before, it kind of comes back to you a little bit more naturally, but it's really tough getting used to. Um, so Resident Evil 4 play as obviously Leon, and in the village, literally in how fast do you think you get to the village? What in like first like what 5 minutes probably
15
that village
for a
area?
new player.
Yeah, probably about yeah, it makes about sense.
If you take it
So
slow, take in the area, 15.
that and I will let you know Resident Evil 4 the VR game came out just recently, and I picked this up. I have the Oculus Quest 2, so I'm like I bought it day one as soon as it came out, and I haven't gotten very far. I actually just finished that village part, and I got just a tiny bit past that, and I had to stop because I was getting kind of nauseous. But I'm playing like full immersive mode and everything. I will say, it is absolutely phenomenal. Like this is the best VR game I've ever played by far, control wise, everything, and it makes Resident Evil 4 feel like a brand new game.
How
It really
many
does.
VR games have you played, sir?
Um,
So we can get a reference, you see.
like 10, 12 probably.
Hmm.
I played a good amount. Um, And like for example, Super Hot is probably one of the other top games. Well, like Beat Saber, but that's obviously its own category and stuff. But for like a immersive game where I'm like, holy crap, this is like by far the most immersive game I've ever played.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels great, and like it just adds tension to stuff that
Mm-hmm.
normally you wouldn't have in Resident Evil. So Resident Evil 4 really isn't a scary game, like at all. It's when the series kind of started making the change to an action game, less like focusing less on horror and more on action. And not that it's bad in Resident Evil 4's case, because it's a very, very good game. But it's actually very freaky. So when you're in that village, you see the iconic chainsaw guy chasing you. And I was crapping myself trying to
Well,
run
that's
away
pretty
from him.
common, Brad. You end up
Yeah,
having
we
a
already
poop.
know. Yeah, the poop skis are flying.
Question: Is the
Mm.
are the movement controls in that locomotion or teleport?
You could choose either or.
Okay, all right. Which ones are you
I
going with?
did the locomotion. I
Yeah,
did the more immersive one,
I feel
which
like
is
if
why
you
I got nauseous.
I feel like if you do the teleport, you kind of lose the depending on how they do teleport. Because I've played games where the teleport is basically on like a cooldown, or if you spam it, you just like the range just like greatly decreases every time. So you're basically like
Hmm.
teleporting like inches if you're spamming it
So,
to prevent you from just like blasting through a game.
mhm.
uh,
I played like basically it's the first villager that you see, the first enemy in the house. I played to him and with a teleport just to try it out because I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do it, and I'm like, I want to see how it feels, and I was actually surprised at how well I took the normal, more immersive camera movement. But I think the neatest thing is you really don't have to turn. So like the Oculus controls, like you have two analog sticks on each controller, and the right stick acts like a right stick also. But you don't even really need to use that because if you just turn around, you could just hold forward and you'll move forward to whatever way you're like facing, which is pretty nice. And like I said, it makes it almost more immersive than when you're hitting right because it does in like 15 or 30-degree turns. And it's very dramatic. Like, you could just notice it. It's like drastic. Like, oh, all right, it moved.
yeah,
But like basically you have your knife on your left chest. You've got your ammo on your like left hip, um, pistol right hip, shotgun is on your back shoulder, and then you look at your wrist to see your health and your ammo on there. And it's just
it's pretty cool, huh?
super
Mm-hmm.
it's super stressful when you're shooting because like you're not really
What's
or when
even
you're playing the
crazier
game.
is you're
Mm.
still in the beginning of the game. Wait till you get to
Oh
like
yeah.
the castle.
Dude, that's what I was saying is like looking at it and comparing. Like I was in the village and I had to reset 4 times, like 3 or 4 times, because it was intense and I was just getting swarmed so hard.
Dude, I'm gonna end up having to pick up a damn Oculus to play this.
I'll be honest,
It's
it's
a
probably
console
worth it.
seller. Well,
It
a
really is.
headset seller.
It's 110%. Like it, I would say, hopefully Black Friday sales, the Oculus goes down in price. It's 100% worth picking up an Oculus Quest 2 because they're not like crazy expensive.
What, 200
Definitely,
bucks for the base
yeah,
model?
yeah. Just for that, it's so worth it.
And
I would.
Oculus just dropped their requirement to have a Facebook
Or
connectivity to it,
Mhm.
right?
I don't think they dropped it yet, but they mentioned they are,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and
I would,
that's
and
where
it's
they piqued my interest.
I would make sure that they do. Obviously, there's ways around it, but it's it's not something that I'm interested in, so I would never get one.
Yeah. But we've talked a
It's
lot
too
about
bad.
the VR gameplay of it. Let's talk more about the game. You mentioned
Yeah.
you to play through as Leon, as the only playable character. The first time you only play as one character throughout the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, it's also the first game that takes place primarily in daytime and
Mm-hmm.
still keeps the horror. And it's also the first time you're outside of Raccoon City as a whole.
Yes. So because of the change, so they wanted to make 1, 2, 3 the pretty
The
much,
trilogy.
yeah, like the trilogy and stuff. And then obviously there's a couple spin-offs and whatnot that have happened, but in between. But 4, they wanted to make it like different, like something that stood out, which is why they changed the camera angle of being behind the shoulder instead of fixed camera angles and whatnot. And here's the thing, it works great. Like it really does. And Resident Evil 4, I think it deserves pretty much all of the hype that it gets. Like it really is a phenomenal game. The Once you get used to the controls, like it feels phenomenal. It feels like a full-on action game. And honestly, I think the biggest downfall is the game's too long.
Yeah,
That's I
it's
think
incredibly long. You go through so many different areas. And for controls, what is strange to them is you get the third person aiming. It's fixed camera or fixed motion, so whenever you aim the gun, you can't move. And it's like a laser sight outside of like a scoped weapon. And with Leon like breathing, the laser will actually like shift, so it's not steady, which makes a lot of people have some issues with aiming. I'm sure that doesn't help Brad's case at all. He gave us the look as he was drinking his tea. But the like weirdest part about the controls is it has that old game vibe where like on the left stick, up and down moves forward and backwards, but left and right on the left stick don't move you left and right. It turns your character, like rotates. So you could only move two directions per se.
yeah.
But they
So
did add
it's
like the quick turn so you could just quickly turn around and run.
like I said, it's a mixture of modern controls with tank controls. Because like even though it's not, like it really is tank control still. Um, and another thing that I thought was kind of funny is, which I totally forgot from the last time I played it, is you can aim, you can do all of the aiming and stuff with your left stick
Yes.
because it was originally on the GameCube. And I don't know if they used this, I haven't played the GameCube one in like a long, long time. I don't know
I
if you
don't
could
think they
technically
used the
aim with the
C
C stick.
I don't
Yeah.
think so. I
So,
have the GameCube one, as I feel
mhm.
that's, the original way to play the game. So it was actually really funny is whenever I first got Resident Evil 4, my mom went to the store and I gave her money and was like, "Hey mom, I need you to pick me up Resident Evil," meaning the remake for the GameCube of the first game. And she comes back and hands me Resident Evil 4 and I look at her, I'm like, "The hell's this, mom?" And she's like, "Resident Evil, that's what you text me." And I'm
What are
like,
you doing, woman?
I didn't say 4, did I? I said Resident Evil. And she's like, "Well, are you gonna take it back?" I'm like, "I'm 12, mom. I can't drive." She's like, "Well, then shut up." And, and so I stumbled across it on accident. But
Mm.
the game is phenomenal. I remember playing through it. I played through it with my dad, and it won multiple Game of the Year awards. It was released in 2005, and God, it's such a good game. And they released it on
It's
everything
it's been
now.
released on everything. It's literally
But
on everything.
the best way to play it outside of potentially VR, hands down, the Nintendo Wii.
Hmm.
It is incredible on the Wii.
I think it's very common for a lot of people to say that the Wii is the best version of the game.
What's the difference?
You got the
The
motion
motion
control aiming.
the motion
Mm.
control is actually very, very good.
It's
And
not common people who get to say motion controls of a game are good, but
Mm.
mhm.
they did it right in Resident Evil 4.
Now imagine this. The Wii is good. Now imagine how VR is.
I know. I don't want to talk about it
Seriously.
anymore.
Joe, go buy it right now.
I'm going to spend money I don't have.
um, but anyways, some other stuff I'm trying to think. Uh, I'm trying to think of like things that stood out to me. Ada obviously is in the game as well.
My
Um,
least favorite part of the game is Ashley.
yes. And
Ashley
Ashley,
is the
she
president's
definitely
daughter. That's the
it's
whole
essentially a
premise of
escort
the
mission.
first half of the game. Yeah, Leon goes to save the president's daughter. She was kidnapped. That's Ashley. Once you find Ashley, it becomes a quarter of the game is an escort mission, and it's miserable because her AI is terrible. They
Hmm. Yeah.
actually, I was reading into it. They revamped the
AI.
Ashley's AI for the VR version. She's not as bad now.
Mm, I didn't. Well, I guess I get to look forward to that whenever I get to it, which at the rate that I'm going will be in 2022 around December.
Yeah,
um,
but
but
there was actually a lot of different versions of Resident Evil 4 prior to Resident Evil 4's like actual release that we got. And there
yes,
was like the fog version, which was whenever development first was restarted on this game, and I think it was in like 2001, and it was first announced in like 2002, and it was I don't remember exactly the number. It was something like 40% of the game was finished, and
yeah, I
they
think
gave
that's
out a
right.
little trailer of the castle, and it was really foggy, and then apparently that all ended up getting scrapped. And then the next thing we see was the Hookman version, which is where we see like the third person over the shoulder shooting. And there's this enemy that was chasing you down that seemed kind of Mr. X's from Resident Evil 2. That was like you could shoot him, but it didn't matter. And he had a hook, so it got named the Hookman version. I think that one got even farther in development before it got scrapped. And then there was the hallucination version, which I'm not as familiar with or how that exactly worked. But I know the Hookman version is like the most popular known, and before we got
Hmm.
the final version. But they've made this game like multiple times before they finally settled on something. And they had like 5 years between or 6 years between the release of Resident Evil 3 and Resident Evil 4.
The other fun fact too is that when they first were making it, um, the first version was very action based and ended up turning into Devil May Cry. So that's a
They
cool little
they took
cool
action
thing.
to the whole next level for that one.
That's yeah, it's true. But
I'm
it's
very
it is
glad we named it
funny.
that version.
Have you guys played Devil May Cry by any chance
No,
at all?
I've watched people play it, never touched it myself.
Nope.
So Devil May Cry 1, you can tell that it has Resident Evil elements to it. And I haven't beaten it, but I've played a little bit. Very similar like exploration. But if you just I popped in Resident Evil, Devil May Cry 2, and it's hardcore just fight
It's
versus like
just
the
like
exploration part. Yeah, it's insane. So
it became a hack and slash pew pew.
and I think the other thing too that's cool is those demos have come to light now, and you can download and play them.
That I was
And
not aware of.
the only reason why I know that is that guy Maximilian dude. He's played through bits and pieces of those, and I think somebody actually recreated the demo or something like one of the demos too in like Unreal Engine or something. So it
Hmm.
was something cool like that, but nonetheless, the I think the my favorite enemy design wise and stuff is the blind Wolverine dude.
I can't stand them.
I think he's just cool looking.
So Resident Evil 4, like in all of its glory, it actually bothered me a bit that it went away from like the typical zombie. I'm a huge sucker for Resident Evil's like basic zombies and just zombies in general, and it was really weird to me, like the shift, expecting like I said, my mom to bring me home the Resident Evil remake and get the classic zombie, and then I get this Resident Evil 4. But it turned out
Um,
great.
yeah, I am very much with you on that. If you give me zombies, I'm a happy boy. Um, I never been a fan nearly as much, and I think that's why I like Resident Evil 2 is because majority of the monsters are
Yeah.
just zombies.
I also say like I like zombies, but I don't like the more modern zombies. I like the old, slow, funky zombies that just walk. Like they're
You don't
clearly
want like
dead.
you don't want like Left 4 Dead sprinting.
No, dude, it drives me nuts. I love the classic zombie. It's like my favorite horror creature.
No, I'm right there with you. But yeah, I mean, like I said, Resident Evil 4, I think, we could probably talk it into the ground, kind of like the rest of these games, but we should probably move forward. Unless you have anything else to add.
I'm gonna get an Oculus.
Good. I'll be a happy boy when you get it.
I just need to play Resident Evil 4 again for the
Dude, I'm
time.
dying to like have time at home to play it. Like, I just need to have like a good session, but I need it to be long enough so I can take my breaks in between, so I'm not getting nauseous.
You just gotta give Bethany some. Go to dinner, Bethany. Go take a day.
Here's some money. Go get a massage. No, but
on to 5.
Yeah, 5. So this was kind of cool. I just played through this for the first time. I've attempted to play through 5 and I always hated it. And the main reason is because it's I don't consider a horror game at all. It is just a co-op action shooter. That is, in my opinion, what the game is. And Joe was like, "Listen, it's a good game. Let's play through it." And we played together on Steam. It took us 2 days total.
Yeah. We put some hours into it for sure.
Oh yeah.
But
I personally think it's okay for a series to break away from like the core theme. So like, just out from the outside looking in, 1, 2, and 3 are maybe a horror because you're playing characters that haven't really figured out what the heck is going on, and there's zombies or whatever, but then the zombies are evolving, or maybe you're just learning more about them, and it turns into a shoot 'em up game because they've spread and the disease is spread, and now you're fighting off a horde or whatever. I was just giving an example, but it to me, without knowing the story of 5, it seems like maybe it's okay if it fits within the story of the series.
So this is the thing. Resident Evil 5 itself, I don't think there's anything wrong story-wise and whatnot. It's more of, so Resident Evil 4 was popular, like, to that date. Like, when Resident Evil 4 came out, that was the most popular Resident Evil game.
By far.
Yes, like, it sold the most copies. It was, like, a huge hit. And they're like, what changed? Oh, it was more actiony. Let's make it even more actiony. Well, here comes.
It also was like the taste of the time. It was the hot thing. It was like action games.
Well, so it was the time of like Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, all that stuff. I don't know if Modern Warfare
360 PS3 era. So it was in that time frame. Shooters were becoming popular, like action people. It was like the hot thing, especially in like Western audiences.
Yeah. So they do that, and it's just like they just did these stupid, I call them Michael Bay moments, and it's like there's a moment at the end of the game, and Bravo, you're never gonna play this game. I highly doubt it. And so Chris Redfield is one of the characters you play as, and he's literally punching a boulder.
It's like 50 times his size.
Boxing a boulder to knock it off of a ledge to get across it. It's just over the top and it's dumb.
It's very cartoony action. But
yes, so
the game itself as a co-op game is an incredible co-op game to play with a friend.
It's probably one of the best co-op games I've ever played. And for like shooting wise, and after like, it's funny because we played it, and then my buddy came over and I was like, dude, this is really good. and like I was like I kind of want to have him play it, and he couldn't get into it because it still has that old Resident Evil 4 aiming
Yeah,
to the
and
game.
controls, you can't
Yeah,
run sideways. It's all forward, backwards.
so it's still a little bit dated, but it's honestly not bad. I actually would play through this again, which before I I just couldn't get past how actiony and weird it was.
It
It just wasn't
also,
clicking for me.
if you do not play through this game with somebody, it is significantly less enjoyable. But basically, with Resident Evil 5, it's based in Africa, so we're once again not in Raccoon City. The bioterrorism has reached a global scale, and this game actually got a ton of flack because whenever it originally released in the trailers, all of the enemies were black, being in Africa, and Chris being a white dude, and Sheva being she seems mulatto.
Mhm.
It got a lot of crap that you're these white characters running around shooting all these black guys, and the game actually got like sent into like international findings and research was done. It was kind of thrown away, the complaints, but Capcom took it and went back and were like, okay, like we see the point, and they added in different races or skin colors of characters as the enemies. But it was a huge deal whenever this game first got released in its first trailers. But essentially, Chris goes in with Sheva to, try and figure out what's going on with the bioterrorism. Umbrella's affiliated once again, yada, yada, yada. Pew pew your way through all of Africa, and definitely very action oriented. My favorite is whenever, like, the one door is coming down when you're in, like, the caves, and instead of just, like, sliding under or just diving through, like, the characters, like, do a cross in the air and dive over and under each other, and it's just like, why would you do that if you're about to be crushed?
That brings me that reminds me also. So Resident Evil 4, as we said, was a little bit my favorite is right in the beginning of the game. You're in the house, and so you kill the first villager that's bad, and then you're in the house and you're trying like, oh, where do I gotta go? And you go up the stairs and you're like, all right, well, I'll escape by the window. It's like press A to jump out the window. And, logically, what would you think would happen? You'd open the window and maybe like lower yourself down, jump out a little bit or whatever. No, Leon does is
Swan
shoves
dives.
just swan dives out of it head first, breaks the glass, and does like a
Front flip in the air,
yeah.
lands in a crouching position.
Is it's insane. So, anyways, back to Resident Evil 5. Um, the action of it is, and it's cool. It has the upgrade system also. Completely removes pretty much any inventory management. It seems to me.
Yeah, it's like a
Um,
9 grid system now that
it
everything just takes up one spot.
yep, and it was kind of nice. Like, so I think Joe and we were focusing on different weapons for the most part. He had
Yeah.
a sniper rifle, and
Brad took the shotgun.
yeah, and I think we both had different kinds of pistols.
I
And
stick with the basic one all through the game. I think Brad ended up taking the Lightning Hawk at that point.
and I think I also had I think I was messing around a little bit more. I think you were mainly pistol and sniper rifle, and then I was using a little bit of the rest of the stuff, so like submachine gun and whatnot.
Yeah, you had pretty much across the board. I was giving you basically whatever you wanted because, like I said, I literally only use the pistol in those games.
hmm And yeah, I mean, I I think the game's fine though. Um, Honestly, I don't have anything too much to say. Like, it's kind of cool when you have like the horde modes. I think the some of the outside of the basic monsters, because those aren't too interesting, but you get your like in the beginning. I remember like the executioner guy. He was kind of cool looking.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
there's some cool.
definitely the iconic enemy of Resident Evil 5. One thing I really liked, I love the co-op aspect, and Resident Evil 5 realistically is the Resident Evil game that I have the most time in by
hmm
far, just because of the co-op aspect. and Mercenaries mode, which was also in Resident Evil 4, but Mercenaries basically just being a time-based mode that you kill enemies, pick up time, get more time, things like that. It's basically just survive as long as you can and gather points. But the co-op just made this game so fun, and I've played through it so many times and on every difficulty and got all the collectibles and all the infinite guns and the secret guns, which are a mini gun for Chris and like a tribal bow for Sheva, which
Hmm.
the bow is the best weapon. It doesn't have any like laser sight, nothing. No sights. You just pull it back and launch that bad boy. But it hits so hard because bows are overpowered in every game they're in for whatever reason. But Sheva also has a left-handed over-the-shoulder aiming, which I prefer for some reason.
Hmm.
But yeah, the game is incredible. I have no problem playing through this game whenever I get the chance. And as a Resident Evil game, the story fits. It it's better than 6. It's better than the 3 remake in my opinion.
What are you talking about? Don't be bad mouth in 6. All right. Well, by the way, Joe, at some point, we'll probably play 5 again on PlayStation. I'm sure. So
I want to beat 6 with you too. I want to do it.
we'll do it.
Did
We
you
will
guys
do it.
record your 5 playthrough?
No.
No, we did a very casual playthrough, but when we played 6, um,
It was
which we
the
might as
exact
well
opposite of casual.
we might as well talk about 6 now. So when we played 6, I was like, let's stream this bad boy. Why not? So we started up, and with 6, there's multiple campaigns. So I can't tell you right now all of them, but the 2 that I know are Chris and Leon. And then there's, I think, is it Ada?
Ada has
What?
okay. So there's Leon has his playthrough
Mm-hmm.
with I don't remember the other girl's name. There's a Chris playthrough with Jake Moeller.
Yeah,
I think those two are
Jake's
together. I know
Jake
Jake's
sounds
in one.
familiar to me, so that
Okay.
was what was throwing me off as well.
There's 3 different playthroughs, or there's 4. I think Ada. So Ada was originally going to be a single player playthrough, but then the rest of the game was co-op, and they're like, we can't just have one that's single player because you could do the rest of the game, and they just threw in like some random like umbrella character.
Oh, so it's Leon and Helena's,
Yeah, yep, that's her
and
name.
then it's Chris and Pierre, and then Jake and Sherry, and then if you beat all of them, you would get Ada's campaign. But being that
It's
we
like
got.
basically Hunk. You get to play with
Mhm.
her.
So we decided, and they're also split up a little bit. So Chris is the more actiony one, and then Leon's is the most, it's like Resident Evil, where it's a more survival horror. And when
Even though
we
it's
quotes, it's more survival horror. This thing, I call it the Michael Bay movie experience, because everything's blown up. You're jumping out of helicopters. The entire city explodes after Leon sneezes, and it's wild.
so.
So Joe and I decided to play through. We got 2 hours into,
So
maybe
we
2
got
hours.
through the White House area. Like
Mhm.
seriously, we played through it and we were like, okay, this isn't bad. Then you go into like the subway system and it that's when the Michael Bay starts. Me and Brad start messing with settings. We realize we can make the laser on our guns different colors. And so we have
Yes.
like a rave going on in the subway system. And then we're going up the steps coming out of the subway. And I don't know what I did, but I hit a button and I like dove backwards and I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And then I'm like laying on the ground with like my gun drawn and I'm shooting. And Brad's looking at me. He's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, do this. And so we start diving backwards. And then we realize that you could like move when you're on the ground. Like you just shimmy along or you roll side to side. And so every time we see an enemy, we're diving backwards, rolling around like fish, and
It
spent
was
like an hour
hilarious.
just laughing and
It was
flopping
hilarious.
around.
And then as soon as that got old, the game got
Yeah,
old.
the game was over. Once we got bored with that, that was
Yeah.
it.
I
But
felt
we
like, have you guys ever seen the MMA fighters that are like specialists in submissions? Like they're uh
just
and
flopping
they're
around
like
down there.
they're sitting on the ground and they're like scooting at people
Mhm.
their legs.
Come
Like, come
on.
on, come on, come down here with me. That's basically what we were doing, but with just a pistol in our hand.
But
Scooting at
we
a
got
butt.
to there's a part in the Leon campaign where you're in the gun shop from like Resident Evil 2. It might not be the exact one, but it's a nod to it for sure. And we basically are like in there defending it, and we're everyone's running around like the NPCs and they're screaming and everything, and then there's just me and Brad like laying in the corner on top of each other, just laying there shooting.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's I will say, so they try, you know, it is way more action based. There is nothing scary about it at all.
No,
Um, but it's kind of cool. They added like extra um melee options. They added the diving is a I'll be honest, it's actually good features, I would say. It's just too bad it wasn't better implemented.
they're
That
great features. They just didn't fit what I, as a Resident Evil fan, was looking for. I'm sure there's
hmm
fans out there that adore this game. I am not one of them. But I
yeah.
did beat every campaign in this with my dad. We've played through all four of them. Um,
Oh, you
I'm-
have.
I have beat this game completely
Mm,
through, and
you.
I so just about every Resident Evil game out there, besides like the Game Boy or DS
Were
ones, I have played through and beat, including like the Umbrella Chronicles, which is
were
miserable.
you and your pops, were you like snowed in a cabin somewhere and all you had was a generator in this game, or
So you don't know this game's bad until you start playing it. I mean, they re- actually, now that I think about it, I don't think I actually own this game, like physically. I think I had a copy of this game, if you're picking up what I'm putting down, because we had
Mhm.
a cracked Xbox 360. So we
Mm.
played this game before it officially released,
Ooh, spicy.
but I didn't say that here. And so we were all hyped up that we are playing a game ahead of time. But yeah, we played through this entire game. Like I said, we played through all of the Resident Evil games from 5 onwards that were multiplayer, like Umbrella Chronicles or whatever that crappy one that you played as the Umbrella characters in the areas. But yeah, this game as a co-op game, it is okay. It's if you're gonna play one, I'm gonna tell you to play 5 over 6. But 6 for what
hmm
it is fun. If you want a pure action game, don't care about Resident Evil. You get the characters from Resident Evil thrown in there, but that's about all there is to the game. Story wise, you don't progress much. I don't remember the story of this game. Every other
It
game I could tell you the story of.
I think the thing is because it's so over the top, like if you were to take this and be like, okay, even, you know, take it out of Resident Evil, give it a different name and whatnot, right? It's the story and stuff is just so over the top and cheesy that it makes you not enjoy it. So that's what I think is the biggest downfall because like if a game is I don't know, it's like it's kind of boring in general. Like the gunplay itself doesn't feel as good as 4 and 5 to me, at least. Um so you'd think like, okay, well, at least there might be a decent start, and there's not. Like this, it just sucks, and it's very quick time event heavy from what I
Yeah.
remember too, which
Yes,
makes it
very.
way worse. Which like 4 started doing that, but it wasn't too much, but it had the quick time events,
Yeah, it
and then
was
5 ramped it
mostly
up.
like running down hills for
Yeah,
4.
it was like just mash these few buttons, then you died, and you just redid it real quick because you know what's happening now. And then 5, they had a couple quick time events, including the punching boulder scene, but it wasn't as obnoxious as 6. So
Yeah, 6, it's like everything. Like, you want to open this door? Quick time event. You want
yeah,
to
where are the
reload your
keys?
gun?
Put it in the ignition. Look at the mirror. Check it out.
Oh, I remember we got into the car and we're just sitting there like looking. We're like, no, why isn't nothing happening? And then we start looking around and it says like open the visor to pull out the key.
It's
And
something
Brad's
like
like,
that. Yeah.
what?
Man. But
But
anyways, yeah. So we'll probably at some point, I'm sure, sit down and try it one more time. Um, probably I've tried to force myself through a lot of horror games, so I feel like I almost am obligated to force myself through this one as well.
is this the only one you haven't played
I haven't done the
besides Zero?
PS1. Yeah, I haven't done Zero. I haven't done the original PS1 games. Um, but I've done 4 or 5. Haven't done 6, 7, 8, and then like the off ones. I haven't played through all the way. I've like tested them out and whatnot.
Gotcha.
So,
Well, let's hop into back in the day. Get back to number 7.
so Resident Evil 7, I has a special place in my heart because it's the I give it credit to the game that got me back into horror games and kind of gave me that newfound love for it again. And honestly, 7 is one of my favorite games. I know uh, some people don't like it, but I like the change to the first person. I think it adds a lot of horror. I actually think this game was scary. Like the intro to this game um is extremely creepy. Like there's just something that is off-putting, and it even still, like, I've played this game so many times, it's still just like I'm like I kind of can't wait until I get through the beginning part. Basically, once you um the the main line of "Welcome to the family, son," and get punched in the face. Um, as soon as that happens, I feel a little bit better because
Well, now you're in the family. There's nothing to be scared of.
yeah, exactly. I'm part of the family. So
Did you play
um
the demo for this before it released?
um I think I did.
S-
I'm pretty sure I did.
So
And that's what got me hyped for it.
yeah, I being a huge fan of Resident Evil for as long as I can remember, when the demo was announced for this game, I was one of the people that literally was like pushing every button on every inch of wall to see what I could
Mhm,
find because it was like Resident Evil 7. Like, what is this? This isn't Resident Evil. Why am I first person? I feel like I'm playing Silent Hill or something like that.
mhm,
But the demo, like how they teased everybody and just put in a whole bunch of nonsense to waste people's time was some of the most fun like internet time I've spent trying to figure out with the randoms of like Reddit and all of that.
mhm.
But yeah, the game is really good for what it is. It I'll admit I was one very skeptical of the change to first person. I wasn't like per se, oh like they're not zombies or any of that anymore because I was pretty much past that after 4, 5, and 6. But it was a tough change going from you know fixed cameras, which are basically like reached out third person to standard third person to then just being thrown in first person, not playing a character that was recognizable and playing as Ethan. He was just a nobody to the series pretty much. And it was weird to get into, but yeah, like you said, the introduction of the game, like walking through like the field into the home, it was something
But
special.
so to me, first of all, even still today, the game it like that intro, the introduction like actual movie when you see the video like it's like the overview of
Yeah,
Louisiana in the car, it looks like I was like, oh wow, it's like a real video. It's like real people and stuff.
yeah.
Like they're doing maybe like a mixture. No, that game was all it's freaking gorgeous.
It definitely was great. I actually haven't played any of the DLCs for this game, and I
Mm.
didn't know they were all like free Or
I don't know if
some of
they
them
are.
were free?
Some of them are, yes, and they're actually pretty good. They have one where you play as Jack's brother, and you go through. It's actually pretty good.
No
Yeah.
spoilers,
But
because I haven't
no,
played them.
so no spoilers, but like it's different enough, but like it's set in Resident Evil, but it's different enough to where you're like, this is interesting. Like completely
Yeah.
changes like the combat and stuff like that. It's pretty cool.
I
Um,
actually like wasn't aware that they were a thing until much later in the game's life cycle. Because I played the game, I beat it, and then like PSVR came out, and I was like, oh, it has VR, so I played through it again and beat it and never touched it again. But I actually want to go through and play this game again simply because I want to do the DLCs.
mhm.
But yeah, it's such a weird game for Resident Evil, and like the massive change, English Joe, massive change they made to go back to this survival horror aspect. And I do think Ethan and Mia are pretty interesting characters. Ethan being the main player character, Mia being his wife that you go to rescue. For a little background of the game, Mia goes missing. A few years later, Ethan gets a, what was it, like voice recording of Mia talking, telling her.
So basically, this is how I interpreted it. Um, so Mia recorded that video, sent it. That was That was the last video he ever received, and he was rewatching it. But then he ran. If you look, he gets a random letter that I think it's like a postcard or something, and it says the address of the house, and it's like, I'm here, Mia. It's like really short, brief, to the point. And then that's why when she's like all confused and she's like, I no, stay away. Like she wanted to
Yeah,
stay away
yeah,
and stuff in the video because she knew what was happening because she recorded it on the boat. I don't know if you
yeah, yeah.
recognize that. Yeah.
I
So
did.
and it's it's a pretty cool. Like I think it's cool. I thought um I don't know. I think Mia is the creepiest part of the whole game though. Like by
Yeah,
far.
so like the beginning part where she gets your hand per se,
Mhm.
that part, like in VR, that was one of the most intense parts of the game, and definitely the most intense VR experience I've had. Obviously, I haven't played through 4 or anything like that yet, but playing through Resident Evil 7 in VR like was the first game I played in VR. I played like the, little Until Dawn and all of that, and Batman and all of those like goofy little games, but it was like the first big AAA name game that was available for VR, especially the PlayStation VR.
Mm.
And that it changed the game completely and gave me a lot more respect for the game than I had. And overall, it's a really enjoyable experience. I think the Baker family are good antagonists, and
Mhm.
I thought they did a good job of like making them all very unique feeling and how
Oh
you had
yeah.
to deal with them.
So this is I feel like this is the game that I know the most out of all of them, as weird as it sounds, because I've played this one so much. I as I said, I actually platinumed this game um early on, and I was like playing through it so much trying to get the platinum. And the game just progressively gets worse. That's the biggest downfall about it. Like
Yeah.
it's so the Mia, even the Mia part's good, like right in the beginning, and then right after that you get to you you know it's split up into sections for the different family members that you go against, and Jack is by far, in my opinion, the best one.
Without a doubt.
um
And I think the son is the best, second best.
I know some people really do like Marguerite and stuff. I I think Marguerite's area is cool. I think that she's a cool character and stuff. I think the thing is I like um man, what is his name right now? I can't remember his name.
Yeah, I can't
Jack,
right now.
Marguerite, and wow, how am I drawing this blank right now? But Lucas. Lucas is his name. Um, I think Lucas is a cooler character, but his area I think kind of sucks. Like but he's
Yeah, his
funny. He's got
area does suck, but I like him as a character more than the
hmm
others.
yeah, exactly. And then when you get to the Mia section when you're playing as her, I mean, it just falls off.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying it's terrible, but it's significantly worse than the rest of the game.
Yeah,
Um,
I also wasn't uh, a big fan of like the choice between Zoe and Mia. It felt unrealistic to me.
who's ever choose? Yeah, there shouldn't even been a choice because it's like, do I choose this person that I've known for however long I've been playing this game, or
And
my wife?
yeah, the person whose entire family's been trying to murder me brutally in multiple different ways, or my
hmm
wife that I went through all this for.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
And
The boat
I,
area sucked.
yeah, the boat's by far the worst part. But I will also say I think the molded are pretty bad enemies. And I hate that there's almost no. I don't even know if there are any different enemies other than the molded. Are there? Isn't it
Uh,
just molded?
isn't there like some bugs
Oh
that you
yeah,
deal
there's like
with?
maybe a couple bugs and like maybe like a fatter molded.
Wasn't
Like
there?
different.
There's like the flying bugs. Was there spiders?
I don't think there were spiders. I can't
Uh,
remember. Either way, the enemy variety is very, very lacking, and like Joe and I have already stated, zombies are definitely the go-to. I understand what they were trying to do with this, but molded to me just didn't do much. Um,
yeah, so there were
yeah.
like wall spiders for certain areas that would like block a path. You had to use the flamethrower to kill the bug swarms. You
Oh
use the
yes.
flamethrower, the flying bug. Then there was molded, fat molded, and crawling molded. There were six
Hmm.
enemies in the game that were not bosses.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, and to to me at least, I don't know if you felt this way. When's the last time you played this game? Actually,
It was before the 2 remake.
okay.
Um, when did the PSVR release? Because it was within a year of that.
Hmm. I think the PSVR was pretty close to the regular release too. Either way, so like I was just wondering if you played it like within the last year or something.
No, it
So
was October 2016 was whenever the PSVR released. I got it a few months after release.
okay, so yeah, so I went through and I actually played this game before 8 came out. Um, because I was like super hyped, so I didn't beat it, but I got like probably um halfway or so, and then I was like, I'm just I just don't have the time to actually sit down and beat it. But the game is kind of difficult because here's the thing: the aiming's not very good in this game.
I don't
Like
No, it's pretty bad. I remember
it's like
that.
real bad.
And honestly, I didn't think it was much better in Village. I thought it was maybe like slightly more optimized, but I
I
hated
think it
the aiming
was
system.
I think it was a bit better than 7,
Okay,
but
so the difference that I noted, so I this is an unfair uh comparison to me. I played 7 on PS4. I played 8 on PC, which I'm a lot more accustomed to aiming in now than I
mhm.
was on a controller back then. So I can't really compare, but whenever I replay through 7, I will do it on PC.
Okay, yeah. I would like to see what you said, but I think I understand like it just felt like it was it felt like he wasn't good at aim, like was pretty new to it, wasn't trained with
Yeah,
a gun and stuff, which I get. I think it's good, whatever. But I felt like it almost was. It made the game actually difficult. Like I remember, I was like, "Holy crap! I can't believe how much I utilized the blocking afterwards." Like
yeah.
there's
Was
an
it
actual block
Marguerite uh
for.
the mom?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Marguerite's
The
mom.
her boss fight, I definitely remember struggling with the aiming because of how fast she was crawling around.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. But But I remember actually just so in the beginning of the game, you go into the basement. Um, so there's like a little save area, and there's like a door, and there's a stairwell. So that door right there, you've got like a little item, your item box, and save area, and then you end up going down the stairs, and there's like okay, it's like a little, almost like a maze, and the one area you open the door, and there's like a couple tubs. It's like weird.
Hmm.
But there were like two molded there, and not even kidding, the aim was so weird, and it was like throwing me off because I think the last game I played was like Last of Us 2,
Yeah.
and it like threw me off so bad. I kept dying. I probably died like 5 times that part, and I'm like, I used to speed run this game literally. How am I this bad? It
Yeah,
doesn't even
the
make any sense.
aiming definitely was not as strong. Like, I don't feel they did great in either game with first person aiming.
No. Yeah, I agree, but 8 definitely was better. But anyways, I funny thing is I feel like I'm kind of crapping on this game, but I do love it. I think it's a phenomenal horror game, and it does well.
As
Um,
Bravo said, we're overly skeptical about this horror game thing.
hmm
Oh, I made you notice it now.
Yeah, I think it's more of
I don't really like
play
the
it
weird
so
the
much.
placement of the garlic in this game. It's
Yeah,
quite unrealistic.
I think it's because you play it so much, you realize the flaws more often. Because like if I just played it one time, I wouldn't have realized like, oh, this kind of
And
sucks.
then there's also me who's overly critical of every game I play, and even like Resident Evil 8. Like, as soon as I finished it, I had like a list of things I didn't like and tell Brad, and then he's, well, this, and then he plays it again. Okay, I see a little bit more where you're coming from. It's like, yeah,
Yeah,
screw you, you little.
here's I think the biggest thing you could do to save yourself from having any of the negativity. Play it one time and don't play it again. Like seriously, because if as soon as you play it again, you'll start noticing like certain flaws, and you're like, oh yeah. It's kind of like you
And
guys
don't
know
talk
any
to
like
me about in-depth reviews for games.
mm-hmm. Like you know how I'm sure you've done this. You play a game, start it up, and you don't get through it, and you're like, all right, I'm gonna restart it because
Yep.
I didn't get far enough into it, whatever. And the
But I'm also
intro,
too far, and
yeah, or like but like the intro, it like freaking sucks, and you're like, yo, I'm like dreading going through this intro, or it's like there's like an unskippable cutscene or something like that. And you're
yeah.
like,
So welcome to
no,
my experience with The Witcher 3 and the 50 times I've started that one.
yep, that's me too. But honestly, welcome to my Ocarina of Time
Oh,
playthroughs.
well, you were gonna finish that game.
Yeah, that was no joke. Okay, that like cutscene where
Yeah, I know.
Ganondorf
Yep.
and stuff. Oh, dude,
It
and
bothers
I
me
don't
that
know,
they still don't let you skip it.
and I don't know what it is, but like for some reason, I when I play that game, I get really tired,
It's
dude.
the music. It's the music.
Dude, I start falling asleep every time. I'm
It's the
like,
music.
I'm sitting down. I have it in my hands. Like I've started that game. I've gotta guess at least 12 times. And on the 3DS, I remember specifically, I was laying on my couch in my old apartment, and I literally dropped the 3DS on my face because I fell asleep on the couch.
We're getting off topic here.
Yes.
Bravo, you got
Anyways,
anything for Resident Evil 7?
No, I haven't touched it yet. It's way in the future for me.
All right,
I
on to
do like the way
Village.
it looks. I think 7 and 8 obviously look amazing, and you know, when I get to them, I'm sure I'll enjoy them.
You watched me play through a good bit of Village, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Were you there for that? Okay.
Well, I tuned in, I believe, in the morning, and then I went to work, and then tuned in again, and you had beaten it, and were playing through it again, and very casually was like, "Yeah, I'm like 15 minutes off of like the world record speed run right now," and I'm like, "Oh well, this game's kind of garbage." You beat it multiple times in a day. Well, actually, I think you got it at night, so like you were playing it the next
Yeah,
morning.
I
Yeah,
played a bit at night. I played it until like 3 or 4 in the morning,
yeah, but
and then the next morning I played it and finished it, and then
Yeah.
messaged Brad, and he was like, "Oh, I haven't started yet," and I'm like,
Yeah.
"No."
Well, I was unlucky because because at the time I was doing like I would work 1 week in the office and then and then I would get like 4 weeks working from home, and it landed the week I was working in the office, so I wasn't able to start it until like 5 p.m. or something like that. That day it came out, and I remember I started up and there was like a party in Discord. Joe's streaming this thing, and there were like 7 people watching him, and I hopped in for 2 seconds, and I was like, "I'm just telling you, I'm not going to be in here because I'm literally turning everything off and playing this game." All right.
Yeah, it was literally like a whole group in the Discord. Everyone just completely silent, and it was awkward as can be with me just sitting here playing a game and everyone's sitting there watching. I may as well have been a Twitch channel at that point.
Pretty much, yeah. Um, but I was super hyped for 8.
We
Um,
both were going nuts up to the release of this game.
and I think it was the hype that one, they were advertising it as basically Resident Evil 4 and 7 having a baby. Because they're like, we're bringing back inventory management, we're bringing back, a lot of the gun upgrades. It's going to be more action based with the horror and stuff. It looked amazing. Um,
And
Obviously,
then the demos got released, and me and Brad were picking them apart.
oh my gosh, I found a way to play through it multiple times because all you had to do is make another account on your PlayStation. So I played through it, I think 3 times, one of them, just to kind of, well, let me revert that. So you had an hour to play through the demo. Taking your time the first time through took about a half hour, maybe 45 minutes, depending on,
How
yeah, how you're playing it
tedious would
over.
be.
And the first demo, I literally took the entire hour because I was looking in every corner, every crevice, and everything like that. Then once I found out the little workaround, I went and I blew through it, and I was just like messing around with the combat and whatnot. And actually, I have all of my gameplay of the demo stuff on YouTube as well. But the I honestly think the combat feels pretty good. I enjoyed it a lot, and I think the game overall, it's paced very similarly to 7. The game feels significantly worse as you go through. I think the first area of 8 is phenomenal. We're with Lady Dimitrescu, and I also think the dollhouse is really good too. From for the first playthrough, it kind of sucks the second playthrough because it takes away everything and it just slows the game down a lot. But it has a lot of that like PT vibes because it's creepy. You don't have any weapons. You're just walking around, and then baby.
So let's take a half a step back here. Brad played through the game on PlayStation 5. I played through the game on PC. I was through the demos, so the first like 2 demos were released on PS5 or PlayStation only. Uh, I played through them on the PlayStation, and I was very torn between getting it on PC or the PlayStation. And then, I played through the first 2 demos on the PS5, played through the next demo release on both. Thought it felt better for me as a player with a shooting game on a mouse and keyboard. And then I ended up buying a 4K computer monitor simply to play the game on my PC. That way I had the mouse and keyboard. Got a ridiculous deal on a really nice 4K monitor through Best Buy, but regardless, I ended up getting it on PC. And Resident Evil Village is another game continuation of 7 where you are playing as Ethan again. You start off at home with Mia and your new child, and the goal of the game is child gets taken away, you go rescue child. not
And
going
they
to get
kill
too
Mia.
deep into, yeah, not going to get too deep into spoilers as this game is not even a year old yet. But there are going to be some. So if you haven't played the game and don't want spoilers, now's probably a time to skip ahead. But I personally thought the game was really, really good and very reminiscent of 4 up until you left Castle Dimitrescu. The castle, Lady Dimitrescu and her daughters were both, all 4, incredibly like detailed characters that were fleshed out and thick mama and the memes
The
about her.
flesh, yes, fleshed out.
But everyone loves Lady Dimitrescu, but I'm here for the daughters, all right? But yeah, they were incredible. All of their fights were. I don't want to say that. The fights for the daughters I felt were pretty bland, pretty much across the board, and I expected a little bit more from them, I guess. But they were inevitably just mini bosses, so I guess I don't have a reason to have expected more. I thought the Lady Dimitrescu fight was kind of meh, but I loved the area and like everything building up to that point. Um, is it the Dollhouse second? Yeah, it was the Dollhouse
Yep.
second.
Dollhouse second.
Dollhouse was incredible. It became a walking simulator and like a puzzle sequence, which I like puzzles, so that was good for me. Uh, Super creepy. The giant fetus thing definitely gave me PT vibes.
Mm.
I like the area for the first time through. After that, it just becomes tedious to play through it like that part again, like Brad said. And I was speedrunning this game for a bit and then just got bored of it because some of the areas were just not fun to do. The third area would have been the swamp. I thought the swamp was a pretty rough area. I There's very few games where I enjoy the swamp area.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels like it's used so often and very seldomly done in a good way. I also thought that the boss fight of it was pretty boring as well. I mean, it just felt like everything outside of Lady Dimitrescu, every boss fight in this game was a gimmick. And it's just like, oh, once you just figure out how to deal with this one attack they do, it's just a bullet sponge boss. It's Resident Evil. I don't know what I expect. I get the same thing every time for bosses. And then the factory at the end, I'm not a big fan of like the whole factory theme, but I thought they did a really good job of it and using like the vertical up and down layers and going back and forth and solving those puzzles. And then the boss fight was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in a Resident Evil game. The little forklift tank that got made by Chris. It I was just
It's
baffled.
it's literally the worst thing I think of the game
It was
to
so
me.
dumb.
I
It's
I
not the worst
hated it.
thing in the game to me. It's the second worst thing in the game to me. But yeah, that fight happens. Ethan gets air quote killed, and then you play through a chunk as Chris, which I really enjoyed the Chris chunk. I normally don't care about Chris. Thought it was cool he was part of this game, as that's literally the only tie into Resident Evil they really have, and the Umbrella logo being on parts of the whatever that was going on in this one. But Chris's area was cool. It was fun, using some of the unique weapons that he had. And then Ethan wakes up from having his heart ripped out of his chest. And I just about lost it. And you find out that Ethan is made entirely of mold. Am I using the right word this time, Brad? I
Yes,
always call it
he's the molded.
yeah, and I literally about threw my computer out the window. I absolutely hated the storyline. So there's literally a part in the game where Ethan's hand gets cut off and he just like puts it back on and dumps a little bit of, first aid oil on it and it just goes back. And I'm like, okay, like what the hell is going
There
on here?
was yeah,
And
there's like a lot of like hand
they just
gore.
cut your hand off, put axes through your hand, knives through your hand.
Cut his
And
fingers off.
yeah, Ethan hands are like just
You don't want
made
Ethan
for
hands.
pain. But I hated the fact that they were just like, oh, Ethan's just a molded.
Mm.
I despise it. It's the worst like twist of probably almost any game I've played that I could think of off the top of my head. I literally lost my mind over it.
So I think the only and not defending it because I don't think it was a good thing, but I think it's interesting because basically I think what it hints at is that Ethan was killed basically when Jack is like, "Welcome to the family, son," after the Mia, and that's why because up to that point he's all the normal stuff's happening. He gets his hand chopped off. He doesn't reattach it. He his hands off. And when you're doing the first fight with Mia when she has the chainsaw, um you're shooting her and you just have a nub and going through. Then Jack punches you or whatever. Basically the thought is you get infected at that point and you're killed, but they infect you with the molded virus. And that's why if you think about it, if you remember, there were two shots and you use one on Jack during one of the fights and you give the other shot to Mia when you're saving her on the boat. So it kind of makes sense from that standpoint. You think about it, and that's why when they basically put his arm back together with just staples, and they even have like a little joke at one point. It's kind of funny if Jack catches you. It's like you can get through the game without ever seeing this like scene happening. If he catches you in the beginning of the game, um, when right after the kitchen sequence, he will then grab you and he'll take the shovel and he'll chop your leg off, like the bottom part, or like right above your ankle. Um, and he'll hold it. He has your foot by him, and he squats down. And he starts laughing and he goes, "Come on, Ethan." And basically hands you one of the first aid things, and you pour it on the leg, and then instantly it heals, and you just like, "What the heck?" And it starts like moving his leg, and I think that's implying that he's infected. And that's why the first aid works that way. All of a sudden, it's just randomly, it's like your legs like glued together or something. It's weird. So
Yeah, I never seen that scene, but to me, it literally felt like they got to the end of the game and were just like, now what do we do? And they just had a concept meeting and were throwing crap in the air, and they're the first thing that came out of someone's mouth they just threw on there, like, oh, he's molded.
they were like win back on the Nintendo Switch.
I think the concept of him being a molded is interesting. Like being able to like regrow a limb or whatever. It makes like canonical sense why a guy can like heal from all these various different wounds in the game. I don't know.
Sure. Or they could have just, either made him live with the wounds or just not given him the wounds and made him a normal character. I don't know. It just felt cheesy to me. I
Mhm.
hated it. I thought the last boss fight was pretty cool.
Mm.
I really liked like how you'd go into the dark. She'd like make everything dark. But yeah, you save Rose, and the final cutscene, Ethan pretty much sacrifices himself to make sure the molded go away. But Rose gets handed over to Chris to take her back to Mia, and the end is Rose.
Didn't we 10 minutes ago say we weren't going to spoil this game because it was.
No, I said that I wasn't going to, but then I said, you know what, it's gonna get spoilers, so skip ahead.
Yeah.
Whatever, I don't care.
All right. So, well, since we're just spoiling it anyways, we might
Resident
as well
Evil 9 is gonna
just
be a
own it.
Rose game.
We might as well just own up to it. So, have you ever watched the like boundary break stuff
I'm not
where
even
they
familiar.
um for like YouTube, like the guys will move the cameras into places it won't. So, they did one for this game, and um, there's a I don't know if you could actually see it or what, but I think you can. At the end cutscene, it's showing a Rose when she's grown up, obviously, and you look over, and there's either a car or a bus or something. You can see a figure like kind of staring at you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like they like made a point to like focus in on this figure like it's something important.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And when you move the camera and you go look at it, it's Ethan. So I
Right.
either A, they're just using assets that they have
Wait, how
because
do they know it's Ethan? We've never seen Ethan's face.
like it was Ethan's character model.
Okay.
So
Does it
like it was
say?
only a silhouette.
Okay.
Like you couldn't see like she like I said, if I'm remembering correctly, you look over and it's like this road and you see like this silhouette of a person and then she gets into a car, like the car
Yeah, yeah.
um person. Well, the person and went, you know, moved the camera and looked and
Okay.
it was Ethan and they're like, is this hinting at something or is it, you know,
They just didn't
just
want to make a new character.
yeah, is it just hey, we have Ethan laying around? It's kind of like the Silent Hill 2 stuff where it's like, oh, we'll use James's body because it's here.
Yeah. Okay.
um,
I was gonna say because like they make it a big point that you never show Ethan's face for whatever
mhm.
reason.
Yeah, I think that he actually has a character model for his face, which
I
is
don't believe he
funny.
does.
So in 7 he doesn't, but in 8 he does. He's just
Mm,
like he just looks like a generic blonde dude. He's got blonde hair.
uh, to Google, I know that you can see his hair because like there's a picture of him, then his face is blacked out. Everything you find about him, his face is blacked out.
And it might be that. So it might be that, but either way, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Um my boy, I just want to let you know though, I don't want to ever hear you crap talking Moreau again, the fish boy.
That's his name. I
Okay?
couldn't think of it.
Moreau, let me tell you.
So
He's
as a character, he's really cool. As a
everybody's
boss, he's
simping.
not.
No, he's not. And but you feel bad for him. He's over there, everybody picking on him and he's
Yeah, you
crying.
got Heisenberg and
And my
Big
favorite thing is like
Mama.
you can read. So basically they were doing experiments trying to get and everybody's reaction like these were normal people and whatever were in their genetics made them react to whatever it was that made them have the powers. I can't remember if there was some specific name for the whatever they infected them with. And Heisenberg got the ability to basically kind of have like telekinesis or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, and it literally says like Moreau was essentially useless, and he just turned into this blob of fish and everything. They just like are roasting the man. I'm like, my boy Moreau getting done
Yeah.
dirty.
But
Oh man.
so I don't know. I think they could do something interesting with Rose's character. I think her character model, we actually have a face for her. And I think it's pretty much accepted already that if when there's gonna be a Resident Evil 9, it's gonna be centered around Rose.
Oh yeah. I'm actually
And
kind of excited for it.
yeah, I think she seems like a pretty interesting character. And whatever what she said about to Chris or whatever in the end, if you only knew half what I'm capable of, it makes me think she's knows she's molded or something along those crap lines too. But now that that's what the game is, it makes sense. I don't know. I'm not thrilled about the whole molded thing. I don't find it very.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, I
It
get
is
it.
what it is now, and I'm gonna play the game regardless because I'm a Resident Evil simp. So I'm just gonna have to grow to accept it.
I'm excited for when I get the itch to play through. I'm now that we've been talking about these games, I'm itching to play Resident Evil stuff. But
So I'm
um,
actually in the process of torturing myself and reinstalling Resident Evil 3 just to make sure it was as bad as I remember.
it's bad. Yeah, just don't do it.
I'm
Well,
gonna do
do it
it.
because I want to watch you. I want to watch you do it. But um, you won't make it. I think you'll get to the sewers, and then you'll be like, yeah.
Probably.
But one other, we should probably start wrapping this up a little
Yeah,
bit.
we've been going for a while.
But one last thing with Resident Evil 8, yo, Rose, the baby Rose, big ass head. Holy crap, she got that dome. Huge. And my favorite mod is when they swapped like Chris's head with Chris's man with the baby's body. It was yo, that's amazing. And the banana
Yeah,
mod. The banana mod's pretty amazing.
Banana is good. Resident Evil 8, beautiful game, 100% worth the play. I feel like every game in the Resident Evil series, outside of, I'm gonna even say 3 make, is worth playing just for like the graphics of the bit of the game you get to play. I
It's
don't
worth
think
the
you should.
intro.
I don't think you should ever consider paying more than $20 for it.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it's definitely worth. If it's on sale for like $15, it very well could be right now. Um, it's I would say it's worth about $15. Um,
Talking about 8 or 3?
Free.
the 3 remake.
Yeah.
So
It's on sale for
it's
$19.79 right now. That
yeah,
is
which it's
that
probably
is a
fair.
worth price.
Yeah,
This is like the
just
first time I've seen it on sale since it released as well. That low.
hmm. So either way, um, do we have anything else? I guess to talk about.
So there are
Or-
obviously what, like 20 more Resident Evil games that aren't the main numbered lines. There's 26 games in total. We went through what, 9, so 15 more games. Uh Possibly come back in the future, do another episode on the non-mainline games, as well as the 7 movies, as well as the 3 animated movies, the Netflix show, as well as the new movie coming out October or November 24th, I believe. So maybe in the future, after that movie comes out, when that movie comes out, if we all plan on going to see it, we could do another episode on the movies at that point. But yeah, Resident Evil is a huge franchise, one that's very beloved by Brad and I, and Bravo is getting dragged into it kicking and screaming.
Yeah, I collect it pretty, even though um I haven't played the old ones extensively. I own the only one I don't own is Gaiden. That's the only game I don't own in this series.
Yeah.
So I've got a lot of them. And Gaiden is the Game Boy Color game that almost nobody even knows exist.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's there's a lot to them, but and there are some hidden gems to it. So maybe we'll touch on it later on. Who knows? Maybe it'll be next Halloween by the time we do it.
Yeah, I mean, this is already a long episode. I don't think we
Oh
want
yeah,
to go through 15 more games, and Bravo will probably rip his eyes out by the time we get there.
seriously,
Ooh.
yeah.
Well, Bravo,
How
what do you
how you
got for
feeling,
us?
Bravo? Yeah, what are you doing over there?
I'm just listening. Like I'm learning so much. I'm trying. I'm honestly trying to like get the information in one ear, kind of think about it. Oh, that's pretty cool, and then just let it exit the other ear because I want to play through these games and be like, oh, what's this mystery thing over here? Whoa.
It honestly, I mean, unless you're very good at remembering stuff, it's probably going to be very hard for you to like piece it together, even just from a little bit. Unless you've like played it,
Mm-hmm.
uh, it's probably not
The
the
only one we really in depth spoiled was Village End.
yeah.
I
By the time
I
you get there,
yeah I
We spoiled Village, and it's the one that we probably shouldn't have spoiled the most.
but
truth.
I gave a fair disclaimer ahead of time. Okay,
Yes,
Yeah,
I
you
said I
said
wasn't gonna spoil it, and then
yeah.
I said I was gonna spoil it to skip ahead, and then I spoiled it.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, that was fun listening to you guys talk. I can't promise when I will make it through these games, but I really do want to make it through the games just so I can like be involved with the story and understand what the heck is going
Uh,
on better.
okay, here's the thing. I know that you said you didn't like Resident Evil 1. It was like you don't know if it was for you.
Mm.
If you feel like maybe give it like one more shot, right? At some point. If you still feel like it's not for you, just skip to 2.
Yeah, honestly, if you don't want to play through 1, I will gladly stream it to you and play through 1. That way you get the story, and that way you could just go to 2.
Yeah, I would
Because 2
because
is what's gonna get you into it, if any is gonna get you into it.
That
yeah,
could be an
2
option.
you will like enough to like. I think you will actually like the gameplay of it. Like, like I said, my buddy's never played a Resident Evil game. He played a bit of the. He actually played a bit of 3, and because 3 does play similar to 2, he's like, "This is pretty fun. I could see myself playing these." And I'm like, "Well, you should play 2 then."
And then
So
you
yeah,
just get
and
ready to
then
take steps back in time.
Mhm.
exactly. So same thing. I think that's the one you should start with and just go all in.
All right. Well, maybe that's useful to somebody listening out there. We're going to end it there. Thanks for listening to probably our longest episode so far. You can comment on the YouTube channel. We respond to all the comments. I personally enjoy reading all the comments. Clay, looking at you. You can hit us up on Twitter at envision_org. You can hit us up directly in Discord. We have a social link with all the socials in it. And yeah, look forward to talking to you. Have a good one.
That's the end of Spooktober.
Spooktober.
I love you.
I love you. Call your mother.
69.